Okie dokie, I believe we are all the way live. Hello and welcome to my graveyard. I am your host of the evening, the Cemetery Man from Salem, Mass. Always taking names to kicking candy ass. Live in living color here with you on Grande's Graveyard. Welcome back to another edition of the show. And tonight we re-enter the fifth dimension. And what part of the fifth dimension, you might ask? The fifth season. Yep, fifth dimension, fifth season. Grande's Graveyard live in living color here tonight as we were talk all things Twilight Zone Season 5, Part 1. Now, in the past, I've done two shows on the Twilight Zone. I did a test stream. This is back when I actually first got this camera. It was the first show I ever did on this camera. This new camera, which is way better than the old one I had. Even the first HD camera I'm talking about. This one is just super, super good. I mean, it's a great, great camera. But this in particular case, I would say that this camera is like much more clear and stuff like that. And I don't know, I just definitely, I'm a big fan of how this looks. And I remember I was testing out the sound. So that's why when it came to season 3 of the Twilight Zone, I did a video just ranking those episodes from S to F. And I put all the episodes in like a tier list, which we also have here. So we're going to do the tier list again. I did season 3 in that episode. And then we also did season 4 with Anthony from Fever Dreamland Theater, which was a very fun show. We did season 3 and season 4 all in one video. And I felt with the season 3 one especially, it was 37 different episodes and crammed into one video. I was like, there's got to be a better way to do this. With Anthony, though, we did 18 episodes, and I thought that was a magic number. I said I could do 18 episodes in one Grande's Graveyard. So that's what we're going to be doing here tonight. When I say part 1, we're going to do the first half of the season from episode 1 in Praise of Pip all the way to season 5, episode 18, Black Leather Jackets. So we're going to go from 1 to 18, and we're going to go from there. So I'm super excited about this. Hope everyone's doing well. Hope everyone has had a nice week. Wes is here. I am the Ice Lord. Good evening, Grande. Good evening to the current horror tuber of the month, Mr. Wes from I Am the Ice Lord. Man, welcome, welcome. Congratulations, my friend. I'm very, very happy for you. Welcome to the club. I think I won mine in it might have been, I think, April. I think I was April or May horror tuber of the month. So we're not too far apart, man. Cheers to you, my friend. I'm happy for you. That's great. And if you guys want to vote for new horror tuber of the month, Wes had his new video up, and a good watcher of the show, Professor Macabro, he's been nominated. So if you want to go vote for him, I'm not telling you guys who to vote for, but he's a great friend of the channel as well. So Professor Macabro is nominated for horror YouTuber of the month, and that's really, really cool news. Sean Blue Digital's in the house. Sean, welcome, my friend. What's up, my friend? What's up? Sean just hit 1,000 subscribers last weekend and did an awesome, fun 1,000 subscriber stream. Was really nice, and nicely enough put this channel over, which was very humbling. He said that Grande's Graveyard was his favorite channel going today. So I was very humbled by those kind words. I appreciate that, Sean. I appreciate that. And I'm very, very happy that you hit 1,000 subscribers. Very, very well earned, man. Welcome to the graveyard tonight. But we've got 18 episodes to talk about and absolutely zero regrets tonight. So everyone, I hope you're ready and willing and able, and we are going to get right underway with this son of a bitch. We've got the tier list here, so let me get the share screen up, because this way you guys can keep track at home on the share screen, because we're going to have the share screen up pretty much the whole episode. Yes, so we've got the S to F here. And let me make sure. I want to put myself in the corner. Nobody puts baby in the corner. Well, tonight I do. And basically what we're going to do is I'll drag an episode up here, and whichever one we're talking about is going to be in this little F column. Even though it may not be an F, it'll be there, and then we'll talk about it and rank the episodes accordingly. So I'm super excited here tonight. It's going to be a fun episode of Grande's Graveyard. Sean says, hey there, Wes, and thanks, Sean. Dude, thank you. Thank you for the kind words. Means a lot. It really does. So everybody, cheers. Hey, cheers to a wonderful Thursday night. Let's get right underway with season 5, episode 1. And for my money, the best season premiere in the history of the Twilight Zone. And it's actually not saying much, because I don't think there's been that many great season premieres for a show that was so great in a weird way. Like it's one of those shows that's like its best episodes are usually towards the middle, but never did they have an episode to start a season off better than this one here. Season 5, episode 1. This is In Praise of Pip. A wearied bookie, learning of his grown soldier son Pip dying in South Vietnam, gets to spend one last delightful hour with a 10-year-old version of him at an amusement park. Yes, In Praise of Pip. Now, this was the final Twilight Zone starring Jack Klugman, who was a huge Twilight Zone veteran actor. I believe he and Burgess Meredith had the most Twilight Zone leads, right? Burgess Meredith had 4 leading zones, and so did Jack Klugman. Jack Klugman started off in season 1 for Passage for Trumpet, and then he went on to do a game of pool in season 3, which is my personal favorite of the Klugman episodes. Of course, Death Ship, which me and Anthony Fever Dreamland Theater, we put that episode way over when we talked about it. And then finally, he did this episode, the season 5 premiere, in praise of Pip, where Billy Mooney also returns, a Twilight Zone legend, of course, who was in Long Distance Call as a little kid, and then most notably, It's a Good Life as the Anthony Fremont character who would send you to the cornfield if you thought bad thoughts and stuff like that. It was just a really cool kind of collaboration between 2 veteran Twilight Zone actors. And then the story itself, I think, is quite good. It tells the story of Jack Klugman's character, and he is this bookie that is kind of in and out of trouble. He's been in more trouble than not in his career, and he has a lot of these bad regrets in his life. And basically, halfway through this episode, he learns that his son has been wounded in the war. He's gone this huge surgery, and they don't think he's going to make it out. He has to survive an hour off of like medical help in order to survive. And basically what happens is Jack Klugman kind of runs out, and he's all distraught and sad and crying. And he goes back to this old amusement park where he used to spend nights with his son when he wasn't, conning or being drunk or being a bad father. When he wasn't there for his son, he kind of remembers this amusement park as a place that they liked to bond. And it's there that he goes there and envisions his son as a 10-year-old, again, played by Billy Mooney. And they kind of, the rest of the episode, play together in this amusement park and share one final hour between father and son in the middle of the Twilight Zone. And I thought it was a very beautiful episode, and an episode that not even just a father and son could relate to, if anybody out there is close with their father, but any kind of child parent relationship. This is just happens to be father and son. But perfect example, Rod Serling's daughter said that this was her personal favorite Twilight Zone episode that there ever was, because she saw a lot of her father in it. She saw a lot of Rod Serling in it and their connection with one another. And funny enough, I'm not sure, this one was written by Rod Serling. So she feels that he kind of took some of their relationship and instead put it in this episode right here. And I will say this, I think Jack Klugman in all the Twilight Zone episodes he's in gives a great performance, but I would say this one is the most heart-wrenching. I think this is a heart-wrenching performance. And I have a snippet here of one of the lines of dialogue he says in this episode where he's trying to explain to his son Pip why he wasn't always there for him. And it's great. And Pip's trying to tell him it doesn't make a difference, but he says it does make a difference, Pip. It does. It makes a difference because I want you to know that no man, oh, listen to me, son, no man ever loved the boy more than I love you. It was because I dreamed instead of did, and I wished instead of hoped, instead of tried. But as God is my witness, Pip, I loved you. See, I wasn't able to put it into words because there isn't any language, but I do love you. And it's a really, I think, a nice, heartwarming episode of the show. And Twilight Zone, while it's remembered for all these kind of fantastical twist endings and to serve man, it's a cookbook and, Martians and diners and things like that. Every now and again, it was nice to see them go heartwarming with an episode. And this is what they did here. Instead of going kind of dark with it, they kind of went light with it. And this guy kind of sees the error of his old ways and has a chance to save his son's life and goes ahead and says, I'll give anything to save my son. I'll give my own life. Like, take me instead of him. And the big twist at the end of the episode is they do take Jack Klugman instead, and his son gets to survive the night. And then we see kind of footage years later of the kid revisiting the park and remembering the bonding times that he had with his dad. And to me, it's a really sentimental, nice episode of this show. And to me, the best season premiere that we ever got in the Twilight Zone in the fifth dimension was this 5th season premiere in praise of Pip. I love this one. As far as screen share, I don't know if I could go S, because as good as it is, and I think it's like really doesn't have any issues, I would say it's not one I go back to rewatch very much, because it sort of is sad at the same time. because you want Jack Klugman and the son to kind of be able to embrace again with the older Jack Klugman and the older son. But it's nice that he got that last moment, and he's nice that he kind of sacrificed himself to save his son. So I would say In Praise of Pip for me would be a strong A. I think the only thing keeping it from being an S would be rewatchability for me. I just don't like to be personally sad or think about, a parent dying, or like it's a little bit morbid to me to rewatch it. That's just my thing. I don't know. Maybe some people would love revisiting it, especially like maybe if you're someone who has lost a parent or has lost something like that. Maybe it could be sentimental in that way for you, where you could go, oh my God, if I only had that one last hour with my father, with my mother, whatever. I think it could hit there for you. I definitely think this one hits you in the feels. So to me, In Praise of Pip, wonderful, wonderful episode. Everyone hitting them goals lately. Absolutely. That's what it is. And Praise of Pip kind of foreshadows the Vietnam War. Yes. And crazy enough, this was, right around that time, which is crazy. So I don't know. I'm Slasher Fred. Welcome to the house, my friend. Kubrick Glover, Brian's in the house. Hey, Grande, Twilight Zone might be my favorite TV show. I like Mad Men, Breaking Bad, Seinfeld, and Curb Your Enthusiasm, but maybe the Twilight Zone takes the cake. For me, it takes the fucking cake. I think it's the greatest show of all time. And I wanted to, just like I did with Teen Titans, I wanted to talk about every single episode on this channel at some point. And that's something I definitely want to do. I've done season 3 and 4, so I went a little out of order. So I figured I'd do season 5, and then we'll go back to 1 and 2. We'll just go out of order weirdly. I don't know why I started with season 3. It was really just a test stream when I did season 3. And then Anthony said, let's do season 4. And I said, I guess I'll just go with season 5 next time I pick this up. But welcome, Brian. Hope all is well. I've got the whole series on box set DVD. I've got box set blue, baby. Box set blue in the Twilight Zones. That DVD set, I will say, is definitely more better packaged than this. Like this is the classic, really, really cheap. Exactly how the Odd Couple was packed. Like it's just like discs like this. I wish they kind of would have given each season its own slipcase or something. I don't know. I guess I'm weird for that, but it's kind of how I feel. Imagine, if you will, a man named John Grande. All I'm missing is the cigarette and the tuxedo. A man named John Grande has always been doing streams on YouTube, but tonight he would be doing a stream in the zone. He has yet to meet a zone called the Twilight Zone. Add the fucking the music theme, if you will. Very cool. But yeah, no, I love this show, and it's definitely one that I've been wanting to get around to because, I didn't say this in the intro. Season 5 is considered by many to be the weakest, and I actually find that quite weird because I think it's much better than season 4 overall. Like I think it's a big fucking step up. Of course, season 4, they went to the hour-long format. To me, it did not fit the show whatsoever. A lot of the episodes feel elongated and weak because of that, sort of watered down. Whereas here they continued back with the half-hour format, which I think fits the show perfectly. 25 minutes, you're in, you're out. I think that's perfect. I think the big reason people say that this season is the weakest is because Rod Serling took a teaching job around this time. Rod Serling took a teaching job, and therefore he filmed like all of the intro and outros in like a couple of days. So there's a lot of, usually Rod will walk onto the scene. He'll be on location. There's quite a few of these where he's not on location. It's very noticeable. Like he'll just be in a white room recording lines. And I think a lot of people go, oh, Rod wasn't there, so his creative input wasn't there. Therefore the episodes lack. Maybe a couple of them do, but I wouldn't say season 5 is bad by any fucking stretch of the imagination. Of these 18 we're going to talk about tonight, maybe 3 or 4 I don't like. Maybe that's stretching. I know 2 for a fact I don't like. There's only 2 on here that I don't like. Like I know for a fact. Maybe 3 or 4 that aren't good. Like, but it's a good ratio, man. When you have 36 episode season, and we're going to be talking about half of them tonight, I just like 2. That's 1/9 of the episodes being bad, and then 8/9 being fucking good. So I don't know. I'll take those odds. 10 out of 10 times personally. I think season 4 is the worst. I agree. I don't think it's even close. The other formats are more tight. Yes, exactly. I know what you mean. Yeah, the other seasons, I think definitely the half-hour format fit this show better. That's just always how I felt. But that is season 5, episode 1, In Praise of Pip. One that I really, really like, and one that I think is one of the better like season premieres that there ever was. The best, in my humble opinion. Let's move on, though, into season 5, episode number 2. This is Steel. In 1974, boxing has been outlawed and is performed by mechanical robots. And Lee Marvin's character, which it doesn't give in the plot synopsis here, doesn't give his character's name. Lee Marvin, with his next and possibly last fight approaching and his robot in need of repair, he resorts to one last desperate gamble. Yes, I'm talking about Steel. Yes, Steel from season 5, episode 2. This one, actually, funny enough, before we get into the episode, was remade into a feature length movie starring Hugh Jackman called Real Steel. And I don't know if people have seen that or remember that movie, but basically, Real Steel was, I believe, a 2011 movie where it's the same thing where robots are now boxing, and instead in that movie it was you put on like this kind of get up where you could do this and the robot would do what you would do, it would mimic what you would do. However, in this episode it's just a robot, like you program it to fight and defend and all of these things, and the robots would fight each other in order to stop having humans getting hurt or dying in the ring and stuff like that. And now Rod Serling was a diehard boxing fan. If you've ever seen a movie called Requiem for a Heavyweight, that's a tremendous movie, and Rod Serling wrote that script, and man, he does a great job. Burgess Meredith is in that movie. I mean, I love Requiem for a Heavyweight. I think it's a great movie. So he was definitely, wrestling and boxing and all that. That sporting stuff kind of was definitely something that Rod Serling always kind of like gravitated towards. And people remember the episode of the Twilight Zone, The Big Tall Wish, with Boley Jackson and please, Boley, please. I mean, I love that one. That's a great episode of the Twilight Zone. But I dare to say Steel might be my favorite boxing episode that the Twilight Zone ever did. Not that they did too many, but this one would probably be my favorite. And the reason for that is probably Lee Marvin. I think Lee Marvin does a wonderful job in this episode as the lead, and also Joe Mantell as the sort of sidekick in this. Pole is the guy's name. And the two of them together just worked off each other so well. These two partners, they're kind of desperate for money and desperate to get the battling Maxo, which is the name of their robot, into this fight in and out in one piece, and to win the fight. If not win the fight, just end it in one piece, not break down, because they have like a version 2 robot when they're already up to version 7s or version 8s. It's kind of like me. Like I have an iPhone 8 when the iPhone is up to fucking who knows. I don't even know what the iPhone is up to now. I'm sure someone would know. But I have the iPhone 8. Like I have the obsolete version of a phone, but I don't really care. And neither do these guys, because that would cost more money and things like that. And there's these big problems that kind of arise from the episode. They don't make the parts to fix Battling Maxo anymore. He's breaking down. He's slow. He's old. He's weathered. And these two guys just need to get the paycheck to move by. And unfortunately, what happens is the promoter comes in and says, listen, this piece of shit, junk, rusted metal, better give us a good fight out there tonight, because otherwise you're not going to get paid. And he kind of puts that on them. And if they don't get paid, they're going to go broke. They're going to pretty much be homeless. And unfortunately, what happens is Battling Maxo breaks down in the locker room while it's warming up. And Lee Marvin says, listen, has anyone else seen me aside from the promoter? And he says, no, why? And he says, well, the promoter doesn't watch the fight. What if we pretended that I was a robot and I go in and fight pretending to be Maxo? And of course, his partner, that you'll get yourself killed. You're going to fight an android that is literally programmed to destroy whatever it's called. That's crazy. Like, don't do this to yourself. Don't put your life on the line just so we can get a couple of bucks to scrape in and out of town. We'll find another way. I'll call my sister. I'll do this. I'll do that. But it's Lee Marvin's performance in this and his kind of tenacity to say, no, I'm going to fight the fight, and I'm going to get us money, and I'm going to get us out of here. That's truly inspiring. I think it's a really inspirational episode of this show where Lee Marvin, I think the cinematography is really good in this episode as they're kind of rolling him to the ring. And these awful fans throwing garbage and hot dog wrappers and soda pop at Lee Marvin, thinking he's this, version 2 robot. And Lee Marvin's just face of determination, like, I'm going to take you out. Like, I was a former boxer. I'm going to do my best. And the fight itself is kind of heartbreaking. Like, I remember when I first watched this, I thought I had an idea of how it was going to end. I thought maybe he'd upset him or find a way or hit the robot in the right spot, almost like Rocky beating the Russian. He's cut, something like that. And it doesn't go that way. Instead, Lee Marvin pretty much gets his fucking ass kicked in. And they roll him out, and he's beaten within an inch of his life. And basically the assistant comes back and says, listen, we got half of the money because we didn't even go around. And he goes, what? And he grabs him. He's like, what are you talking about, half the money? He's like, listen, we got something. We would have got nothing if you didn't go in there and get your head beaten in. We got something, like take it as a victory. And I thought the closing narration in this was definitely one of the best of the entire series, where Rod Serling says, portrait of a losing side. Proof positive that you can't outpunch machinery. proof also of something else, that no matter what the future brings, man's capacity to rise to the occasion will remain unaltered. His potential for tenacity and optimism continues, as always, to outfight, outpoint, and outlive any and all changes made by his society, for which 3 cheers and a unanimous decision rendered from the Twilight Zone. I thought that was one of the best closing narrations ever because it's the perfect bow on the top of this kind of gift that is Steel. I think it's such a good point. Like, yeah, could he have just skipped town? Could he have just called the sister? Absolutely. And try to get more money and just try to live to fight another day. Sure, they could have done that, but he instead decided to fight today, fight tonight, fight the robots, fight in order to get paid. And it is sad because it doesn't necessarily go his way. He doesn't win. He gets his ass beat in and he doesn't even get paid the full amount. But it's his determination that kind of earns your respect as the viewer towards what he did. Am I that tough? I don't know. Are you that tough? I don't know. It kind of forces the viewer to look in the mirror and ask yourself that pivotal question. Could I do that? Would I do that? I don't know. And I think just Rod Serling's closing narration there really drives that point home. This was, of course, an episode written by Richard Matheson, and he has claimed of the 17 or 18 Twilight Zones that he penned, this was his personal favorite one, was Steel. And I have a hard time disagreeing. I think it's a great one. I don't know if it is my personal favorite Matheson. I'd have to sit down with all the Matheson episodes to say which one was my favorite, but it's definitely a really, really good one. Super underrated in my opinion. So that would be Steel. Now, where would I rank it? That's the true question here on Grande's Graveyard tonight. I'm going to go with a strong A again. I think it's a strong A. I think this is a fucking good episode, man, personally. I don't know. Definitely one that I think is decent enough. Rod Serling wanted to do a show on racism in the South for a show, I think, called Playhouse 90s before Twilight Zone. But because the network had Southern syndicates, he had to set the story in, I think it's Mexico. Oh, wow. I didn't know that. I mean, it makes sense. He's definitely written some, of course, this season 5 was I Am the Night, Color Me Black. That's the episode about racism. That won't be discussed tonight. It would be season 5, part 2. They used the opening intro for season 4 and 5 for the 1983 film, which is, I really like that movie overall. The box set had things like commercials. Oh, they have that in the Blu-ray, I'll say that, but I think the packaging on that set was so much better. Like, you got the classic red, black and white color scheme. This is just like blue, and there's not much artwork here. I don't know. I think Twilight Zone is a show that deserved better artwork than that for me. That's just me, though. I don't know. Robert Redford, I think, made his debut. Oh, I love that one. Yes, and he's right. It was called Nothing in the Dark, which is a great one. And of course, yes, Richard Kiel, who is, of course, To Serve Man, the Candyman, if you will. Oh man, it's so hard to pick a favorite. It really is. But this season, I think, is full of really good ones. And we're about to talk about another really good one next, and arguably the most infamous Twilight Zone that there ever was. And this is season 5, episode 3. It aired on October the 11th of 1963. This is Nightmare at 20,000 feet. A man newly recovered from a nervous breakdown becomes convinced that a monster only he sees is damaging the plane he's flying in. Yes, Mr. William Shatner in an episode directed by none other than fucking Richard Donner. Richard Donner directed this, and he directed a few episodes of season 5, which is wild because this is the guy who went on to make Superman, The Goonies, so many great movies. I mean, Richard Donner is an absolute all-time legend. I could sit here all day. The Omen, so many great Richard Donner movies. But this is arguably the most infamous Twilight Zone that there ever was. And it may not even be my favorite Richard Donner one, but in this season especially, you had a lot of directors that would go on to do stuff. Another guy that we'll see on this list is Ted Post. Ted Post went on to do some of the Planet of the Apes films, which Rod Serling wrote the first one, of course. Then Ted Post, in turn, I believe he directed Battle for the Planet of the Apes and Conquest for the Planet of the Apes. But Ted Post was a big director as well. Not as big as Donner, but still, I mean, directors that would go on to do something. I think what happened here was they tried more experimental filmmaking. They tried more different writers, right? Like, you have guys like Anthony Wilson, who only ever wrote one. You have someone who wrote an episode we won't talk about tonight, Caesar and Me. It's only female written Twilight Zone. Ida Lupino directed The Masks, which is, again, another one we won't talk about tonight because that's season 5, part 2. But still, it seems like this was a season where they tried more unique things. Like, Rod was the least involved with this season overall. And I think people immediately go, oh, well, it's garbage because of that. I mean, I don't see the first 3 episodes we're talking about here. I don't see anything bad here. I don't see anything bad. In fact, I see one of the most remembered and talked about Twilight Zones ever. Of course, Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, starring William Shatner, of course. Which, of course, I always liked the one with Shatner in the diner better, called Nick of Time, where it's William Shatner in this diner and he's kind of like superstitious about what the names are coming out and stuff like that. These yes or no questions he's asking it. I love that one. I think that one's actually better than this, but that's not to say that he's not great here. And I actually think he's fantastic here as this man who's slowly recovering from a nervous breakdown. And of course, he's flying home with his wife in the pouring rain. And one night he sees this kind of gremlin on the wing, and this gremlin is ripping up and destroying part of the plane, and he's the only one that can see it. It's one of these episodes that, in my opinion, was sort of a metaphor for someone going through post-traumatic stress, or someone going through, these fears that people will not believe you. And that's a horrific thing, man. When you're trying to tell people something and they don't believe you, they believe you're the boy who cried wolf, or in this case, the Shatner that cried gremlin. I think that's a terrifying way to feel. And Shatner really sells that fear in this episode, and not just selling it emotionally, but a lot of the facial expressions in this, when he's, really selling the fear, that stuff is great. But I think his best performance overall in his entire career is in this episode. And it's this particular scene I wanted to point out, is when the pilot of the plane comes up to him and says, "Hey, listen, we see it too. Like, just we don't want to upset anybody else." He's trying to bullshit him, being like, "Listen, we see it too, buddy. Just drink your water, have a sleeping pill, and shut the fuck up." Basically, what he's trying to say to him. But he's trying to say it in this nice, "Oh, we see it too, sir. We just don't want to alarm anybody." Shatner's face of, oh, of course, to when he realizes he's being bullshitted, is some of the best acting I've ever seen in anything. He kind of turns and smiles and just is like, "I'll see us crash first. I'll see us crash first, bitch. Like, get out of my face. That's it. I've had it." I love that. I think Shatter does a great job with that, man. Really great job. To the point where I'm like, wow, like, that's fucking something. Like, this is some great acting here. And I think Shatter just nails it. I really like Shatter's performance here. Now, a lot of people will bash the way the gremlin looks. I think it's kind of good. It sort of looks like the Eye of the Beholder design, where the nose is kind of pushed up, but with like this kind of furry koala suit, as Shatner has called it. And he always bashes the episode because there's no aerodynamicness to this gremlin. Like, how is it flying around? I don't know. You just kind of have to suspend disbelief a little bit when you're in the fifth dimension on a plane with William Shatner and there's a gremlin, out and about. But I think that Shatter does a really good job here. Like, I really think his performance is what sells this episode. And just the fact of how entertaining it is and how Richard Donner really sells this episode from a direction standpoint. I think he does a really good job in the director's chair, because anyone that's ever been afraid of flying, maybe not necessarily had this fear of a gremlin landing on the wing, but it goes hand in hand with that. If you've ever had a fear of flying, bam, it's tackled here. If you've ever had the people doubt you, when you could swear on your life that you've seen something and everybody kind of just looks at you crooked, or looks at you like you have 5 eyes or 3 heads or whatever, that's something here. Definitely something to be mentioned and tackled here for sure. I think that's something that's here. I don't know. I think this is overall just a great episode. I don't know if it's my favorite. Like, a lot of people will tell you this is their favorite Twilight Zone. I don't know if I'd go there. I think it's one of the best. I think it's definitely, in top 20 consideration, but I don't know if it would be in my top 10. Like, I don't know. Top 10 of the season? Absolutely. Like, slam dunk. I don't know, though. I would say this is a great episode. It's one of those, it's garnered so much talk and so much love that I don't know how long I really should spend on it. But I will say one last thing about it. I like that the ending, Rod Serling's narration, they say that his kind of fears and worries will not go, unlooked on for long, is that we see that there was damage done to the plane and these people are going to find out. I always liked that ending. I'm like, okay, thank God. Like, they're not going to think he was crazy and throw him in the loony bin. Like, I like that this good character who did these good things and saved all these people's lives is going to be recognized for that. That's just kind of an ending where I was like, okay, good. Like, thank gosh, thank gosh. So overall, I would say this has got to be our first S, just because of how infamous it is. I probably personally would say A, but you have to kind of give it to this one to give it an S. Like, you really have to. It's too infamous. It's too groundbreaking to just be like, okay, A. Like it's just too infamous to me. So Nightmare on 20,000 Feet, I think, well deserving of our first S of season 5. The series Third Rock from the Sun did a reference to that episode. I mean, so many things have referenced this episode. I would say this, Maple Street, and maybe I'd probably Eye of the Beholder, the three most like remembered Twilight Zones by people that don't even. There are some people that have never seen the show that would, if you say Shatner in the plane, they'll go, "Oh, Twilight Zone!" Like they'll fucking know it. Like it's one of those. It's every Joe Blow knows this one. I like the fact that they're not chronological episodes and you don't have to follow a narrative. Some characters. I like those TV shows. Yeah, exactly. You don't really. I like anthology horror overall and anthology sci-fi. Yeah, Nick of Time is great. I really like Nick of Time. I think Nick of Time is a damn good episode. Terror at Something Feet that did an homage that. Yeah, exactly. They've ripped off Nightmare 20,000 Feet 100 times, man. Bart says to Otto, there is a gremlin next to the school bus and you see a gremlin car. Oh, shit. Is that right? Eye of the Beholder kind of looks like Planet of the Apes makeup. But Apes is better because obviously once you get to the latter half of the 60s and into the 70s, practical makeup effects just keep getting better and better and better. Whereas here, a lot of people say, oh, the gremlin didn't age well. I don't think it looks terrible personally, but some people make fun of it. So I don't know. When you see that as a kid, I guess, when you're fucking 7 years old watching TV Land in your grandma's shitty Pennsylvania dream house, and it's a fucking bad TV, like I'm talking bunny rabbit ear TV, bad reception. To me, that thing looked fucking scary, but I get it. I get what people would like kind of make fun of it. I don't know. Personally, I guess sometimes if you see these things through a child's eyes, you can never see them through an adult's eyes. I don't know. Maybe that's kind of where I'm coming from. I don't know. Rod Serling fought in World War II, and I think that influenced the Leonard Nimoy episode where the soldier changes. Yes, and that is a hugely talked about one in talks of, unfortunately, political correctness. People want that one canceled. That one, and there's one from season 5 with George Takei called The Encounter. Another one would be part 2 where there's Japanese slurs in it. So these are, episodes and TV shows that you really couldn't do now because of political correctness. And, there will be people that will say for better or for worse or whatever. I'm not going to touch any of that. I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want to get into politics because I think it's toxic, all of it. But I think that's one where, for me personally, I was never a big fan of. I think it's Quality of Mercy is the name of that one. That's a season 3 joint. But that is Nightmare 20,000 Feet. Let's move on into season 5, episode 4. This is a kind of stopwatch. This is not much of a plot synopsis. A man is given a stopwatch that halts time. That is all the plot synopsis I am given for this fucking episode, which is quite funny. This one stars, of course, Richard Erdman, who I think does a fun job in this lead role is a guy named McNulty. And this is one of the infamous 4 episodes that Rod Serling does say submitted for your approval, which a lot of people always go, oh, submitted for your approval. Like, how many times must that have been used? The answer is only 4. And this was one of the only ones. Of course, in Praise of Pip also used submitted for your approval, funny enough. So 2 season 5 early outings go submitted for your approval, which is fun enough. This one tells a story of this annoying guy who is hated by everyone. The local bar guy hates him. Everyone at his job hates him. His boss hates him. The girl he flirts with hates him. Everybody and their fucking mother hates McNulty. And it's to the point where it's almost comical. At least that's what they're going for here, where it's supposed to be funny how much the guy is hated. He stumbles across this old man in a bar one day who gives him this stopwatch, and he realizes he could stop time with it. And he starts doing all these fun things with it, like, oh, let me fuck with my boss because he fired me. Hits the button and he fucks with the boss's thing, whatever. He hits the button and, makes this person look ridiculous or whatever. And then by the end of the episode, he decides, hey, why don't I stop time and rob a bank? Basically what he does, he hits the stopwatch, stops time. And unfortunately, as he's robbing the bank, he drops the stopwatch and freezes time forever. And, oh my God, I just want to be insulted again. I want to hear people move again and speak again and make fun of me again. And please, somebody move. He's running around like a chicken with his head cut off. This is, I think, a classic Twilight Zone episode where I know the humor won't work for most people. The twist ending, you can see it right when it's introduced. You're like, okay, I know how this is going to end. Like, this is not a particularly clever one where it's to the point where, oh, I didn't see that coming. It's coming a mile away. But I would say it's overall pretty solid. Like, I always like this one. I would consider this a series classic. Not in like a classic in the lines of Eye of the Beholder or a serious one. To me, it's like more of a fun version of like Time Enough at Last. Instead of the guy's glasses breaking, oops, I dropped the stopwatch and now I have nothing. It's basically a comical remake of, Time Enough at Last with a much more predictable ending that's not as satisfying. But at the same time, I don't think it's supposed to be. So I don't know. This one for me, I would say the first one is sort of middle of the road to, I would say classic though. It's a classic in like its format. It's definitely a classic format. So I would say a strong B for me personally. And a lot of people don't like this one, but for me, I don't mind it at all. I think it's solid enough. For me, it's definitely passable. So I would say a kind of stopwatch is a passable episode for me. That episode was called Quality of Mercy, correct. It also starred the late Dean Stockwell, may he rest in peace, who later became known for his role as Al on the original Quantum Leap. Yes, rest in peace, Dean Stockwell. You're completely right. Rod Serling was not afraid to. No, he wasn't. Definitely not afraid of it, and good in a good way, I think. Dean Stockwell was also in Will Wender's Paris, Texas, which I saw recently. Also using David Lynch's Blue Velvet. There was a Nickelodeon movie called Clock Stoppers. That's right. That's right. I saw that as a kid, man. That came up. I was maybe 5 when that fucking thing came out. You can check. I don't know what year it came out. I would say 2002. So I would have been 5 years old. There's that one with the gangster who has the 3 beautiful women and wins a gambling. Oh, I love that one. That's a nice place to visit from season 1. Love that one. That'd be in my top 5, top 10 or top 5 of season 1. I love that one. But a kind of stopwatch. Again, one that's largely, I like it, but it's definitely one that a lot of people probably wouldn't. But let's move on into one of very few that I actually didn't really care for in this season, at least this episode or video. We're going to talk about these. This is season 5, episode 5. This is aired on October the 25th of 1963. This is The Last Night of a Jockey. A washed up jockey gets his wish while waiting for the results of his race fixing hearing. Yes, Last Night of a Jockey, starring the legendary Mickey Rooney. Mickey Rooney in a one-man show, crazy enough. Mickey Rooney in a one-man show here. He's the only actor we see from beginning to finish. And so he's kind of forced to carry this episode. And I would think on paper, Mickey Rooney in something written by Rod Serling, how could this not be great? Like on paper, you would think this has got to be one of the best episodes of the season. Like a great A-list actor, Mickey Rooney, fucking Rod Serling, the best writer in the show. How could this not be good? And honestly, it kind of crumbles, man. I don't really like this one. This is one of those really depressing, kind of mean-spirited ones, I would say. And it's really, I would say this is sort of a bad remake of Nervous Man in a $4 Room, which is from season 2. And I think that's a really, really good episode that nobody talks about. This one, though, I would say is a really poor reimagining of that, where Mickey Rooney is this down on his luck jockey who has been fixing races, and he does not give any sort of remorse about so. He's not a likable character. You don't feel any sympathy for him or empathy. I mean, nothing. He's really just kind of a blah character. And he's on the phone through a lot of the episode. He's talking to himself in the mirror for a lot of the episode. He's talking to himself in his head, and he's at points smacking himself in the head. He's like, how do you like it in there? Like bashing himself in the head, which is really weird. Just really weird. I really don't understand it. How weird it is. Like some of the choices stylistically here. If Mickey Rooney's beating himself up at points, and halfway through the episode, he decides, I want to be big. I want to be big. I want to, I don't want to ride horses. I want to be a horse. I want to be 10 feet tall. I want to be big. I want to be a big man. Okay, like whatever. He's in this small little apartment, and then by the end of it, he gets his wish and becomes a 10-foot tall man, but he can't get out of the apartment. He's stuck in the apartment. And then insult to injury, he gets called, and for some reason, the hearing rule in favor of him. So it's the ultimate, if you didn't wish that, you would have been able to go back to being a jockey. And now that you're 10 feet tall, you can't go be a jockey, you can't work, and you can't get out of your fucking apartment. So theoretically, he's going to fucking die in there because he can't move. He's like crushed into the thing. He's like basically like if you were, in a jar and like trapped in a jar, like you're fucking trapped. Like, I think that's kind of a dark ending. Like, and not in a good way. It's not like, okay, did the character have it coming? He wasn't a good guy. Did he deserve to fucking turn 10 feet tall and starve to death in his apartment? I mean, I wouldn't say that. I would say maybe fucking ban him for life of being a jockey because he's fixing horse races. You could do that and say, fuck you, go get a real job, bitch. You could do that. But fuck, to let the guy do that and die. I was like, damn, like this is kind of a little too dark for me, and not in a good way. I don't know. I like Mickey Rooney. I think this was not a good choice for him. Like I think it was too dark for him. And well, Mickey Rooney, I like to usually be fun and happy-go-lucky. Like I think he would have done maybe. I think he would have been good as the McNulty character in the stopwatch episode. I think he would have been more fun doing that. But I don't know. I guess the fact that they only had him as an actor here, it's a one-man show. They probably went, let's get the best known actor. And that's why I get why they went here. But the script is too dark for Mickey Rooney, at least in my opinion. I think somebody else would have done better in this type of role. And personally, I do. And maybe it's not even Mickey Rooney. Maybe it's the writing. Like, I don't know. For me, the first swing and miss of this season, I don't know if it's an F. I don't think it's an F. I'm going to say it's like a D. To me, Last Night of a Jockey is like a fucking D plus, somewhere in that range. Because it's like, I like the idea on paper, Mickey Rooney in a one-man show, always playing a jockey down in his luck. Okay, where can we go with that? And the rest of it's just like, oh, we go unlikable. It's basically where they go with it. And I didn't really care for that direction of the story. And I think it's one of Rod Serling's weaker scripts for me. I would say a poor remake of Nervous Man in a $4 Room for me. So that's just me. Just one that I would say is kind of a below average one. That one called Higbee's or something, where the fat guy in overalls. Oh, I love that one. Hocus Pocus and Frisbee. I love that one. Lazy. Okay, not a fan of it, but I liked that one. The episode is called Last Night of a Jockey, and Mickey Rooney, who appeared in it, would later. Yes, exactly. And I don't know. I'm just kind of iffy on that episode, man. Yes. The fuck. I love it. Hocus Pocus and Frisbee, man. Yeah, no, I think that one in particular, I know you're saying you don't really care for it. That one in particular to me is a great kind of redoing of The Boy Who Cried Wolf. Instead of The Boy Who Cried Wolf, it's this full of himself store owner, blah, 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 blah. I really like that one. I don't know, but that's just me. I definitely might be alone there. But okay, let's move on into arguably the greatest Twilight Zone ever. Can we say that? It's got to be in contention for the greatest Twilight Zone ever. I mean, it just has to be. This debuted on November the 1st of 1963. Crazy. Some of these are celebrating its 60th anniversaries this year of 2023. This is Living Doll. Yes, a frustrated father does battle with his stepdaughter's talking doll, whose vocabulary includes such phrases as, I hate you, and my name is Talkie Tina, and I'm going to kill you. Yes, of course, starring the legendary Telly Savalas, who Telly Savalas is one of the best actors to me ever. Easily, definitely in my top 5 television actors ever. I always remember him on Kojak, the Lollipop, and Telly Savalas is one of those guys that brought a great charisma and intensity to all of his roles. And he's generally an actor that I found to play likable roles. Like I said, with Kojak, one of the most likable television character leads that there ever was. But here he's playing an asshole. Don't be mistaken. Telly Savalas is playing an asshole in this episode. And man, it's quite something. And I actually really like his performance here as this really mean stepfather, Eric Strader. He's just really mean guy. And he's dealing with, of course, his wife, Annabelle. Funny enough, Annabelle was the wife's name in the Killer Doll episode, which, if people remember, the Annabelle movie that came out close to 10 years ago now, which makes me feel fucking old, even though I'm not. Of course, and then, of course, the daughter, Christy. And basically, the daughter brings home this doll one day, and she loves the doll. The doll has this pull string that will talk. And then, of course, she realizes that Telly Savalas is not nice to the daughter, and then the doll starts threatening to murder him. And basically, this thing kind of plays out. It's one of the, I would say, a true horror episode of the Twilight Zone. Like, a lot of people go, oh, it's a science fiction show. There's no science fiction. This is horror. And it's horror done perfectly. I mean, I love this episode. I think it's one of the best of the series. Arguably the best of season 5. Arguably the best of the entire series is this episode here, Living Doll, of course. And to me, a lot of it is the way that Telly Savalas really brings it in his performance. I really like his performance here of being this mean stepdad, that how much did the doll cost? And, I don't like what it says. And he's thinking that the mother and the daughter might be kind of playing a trick on him and saying these things that the doll is saying and calling him on the phone. Hi, my name is Talkie Tina, and I'm going to kill you. And which one of you was it that was on the phone? Who's calling me? He's getting very angry at them. And they're like, Eric, you're fucking nuts, my guy. Like, take it easy. And they're trying to convince him of this, but he's just getting all angry and worked up and stuff, and he's not taking it anymore. And I think his whole performance is really what sells this episode. And as we move on, some of the scenes of him trying to destroy this doll, Talkie Tina, who he tries to cut its head off with a buzzsaw. It doesn't work. He tries to burn it alive. It doesn't work. He tries everything that he could try to destroy the doll. He puts its head in a vice and spins. He's trying to spin it all the way, and the doll's head won't cave in. All of these kind of gags that he does to try to murder the doll, and the doll just continues to laugh at him. Like, you're going to be sorry. My name is Talkie Tina. You're going to be sorry. He at one point throws the doll in the trash, and he thinks he's gotten rid of it for good. And then, of course, the doll that night ends up in the daughter's arms in the bed, and he decides to take the doll away from her. That's my doll. Daddy, please, it's my doll. And he kind of, in this heartless way, I'm not your daddy, kind of walks out of the room like, damn, Telly, like, God damn it, calm down. Like, Telly Savalas is so fucking mean in this episode. Like, holy shit. But he's really good, too, at the same time. Like, he pulled off being a believable stepfather asshole type like no one else could. I mean, he was great in this. Don't get me like I'll tell you this. As much as I like Terry O'Quinn in the Stepfather movies, part of me wishes they could have made a Stepfather movie with Telly Savalas, because he would have been fucking great for that shit, man. Telly Savalas, one of those talents that would have been great in that role, man. Really great. I love him here. And of course, he's arguing with the wife. She's trying to leave him. I'm going to leave you, Eric. You're not rational. You're not sane. You're taking away her doll. What the hell is wrong with you? We're not playing a game. And he says, listen, how about I give her the doll back? If I give her the doll back, will it be okay? And she says, it might. So he gives the doll back against his will and kind of tries to go to sleep that night, but he thinks he hears something. He walks out into the hallway and trips over the doll, falls down the steps, and bam, snaps his neck like a toothpick. And of course, the doll follows him right down, and kind of they end eye level with one another. And the doll is committed to murder and killed him now for being so mean to the kid, for being so mean to her. And I love the final narration for Rod Serling as right before we fade to black. And we actually get a slow-mo shot here, which I thought was great. The closing narration, of course, we all know dolls can't really talk, and they certainly can't commit murder. But to a child caught in the middle of turmoil and conflict, a doll can become many things: friend, defender, guardian, especially a doll like Talkie Tina, who did talk and did commit murder in the misty regions of the Twilight Zone. To me, that's perfect analogy for what a doll can be. And we were talking about this, me and my friend Ryan, when we reviewed Megan, who just came out, this year, is what a doll can mean to a child, right? We've seen tons of killer dolls since, whether it be Dolly Dearest, whether it be Dolls, whether it be Chucky, whether it be Annabelle. We've seen tons of dolls since, but a lot of these things, what they fail to realize to me, and it's something that I think Megan actually did realize, is what a doll can mean to a child that does not have a loved one in their life. And this is a child that wasn't loved by Telly Savalas. It wasn't her real dad. He was quite horrible to her. And this doll in her hands becomes a guardian, a defender, a killer. And I think what great psychology there to go there with it, with this killer doll. I thought this was a great episode, man. And Charles Beaumont writes this thing based on a short story by, I believe it was Jerry Soule, who doesn't get enough credit here. And he wasn't even credited for the episode. It was his short story that they took it from. And I thought he did a wonderful job. I really, really like Living Doll. To me, one of the all-time great Twilight Zone episodes. And to me, a slam dunk S tier, one that I always go back and rewatch. Like it's an episode that I've seen of the show at least 1 million times. I mean, I love this one. So highly recommend Living Doll if you haven't seen it. A big inspiration for killer dolls to come. Telly Savalas, hell yeah, man. Rest in peace, Telly. Later to play Blofeld in one of the best Bond films, On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Yes, George Lazenby there. If it wasn't Talkie Tina, there would be no Chucky. Exactly. Don Mancini has actually admitted that Chucky was a ripoff of Talkie Tina. And he was a huge fan of this episode and decided, hey, I'm going to try to write a movie about it. Hence, Talkie Tina makes Child's Play. I never would have thought that that makes sense. It's the truth. It is the truth, though. Talkie Tina is voiced by June Foray, who does a cool interview on the Blu-ray. Very cool to hear from her, and very creepy performance. I am Talkie Tina, and I'm going to kill you. Twilight Zone episodes has such a high rewatchability compared to other TV shows. Yes, I go back and rewatch these a lot, man. I watch the Twilight Zone a ton. I'll watch the Twilight Zone through before I start a new show. That's just kind of what, yeah, a very interesting episode. I'd highly recommend this one. In Child's Play 2, there's a reference to Living Doll where one of the workers at the Good Guy Company says, "I'm Chucky the Lakeshore Strangler and I'm going to kill you." It's the truth. Yes, he's right. That's right. Let's see. I'm going to kill you. Let's see. The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror 3 did a horror segment similar to Living Doll called Clown Without Pity. See, Simpsons were big Twilight Zone fans. You could tell those Treehouse of Horrors, a lot of them kind of borrow from the T-Zone. I think most of TV shows back in the time of the original Twilight Zone series was kind of bland until shows like Seinfeld and The Simpsons showed up in the 90s. Maybe Star Trek could be an exception, but Twilight Zone worked. Yeah, no, Twilight Zone's I mean, personally, I don't think you can top this fucking show. I think it's the perfect show. But with that being said, Living Doll, I think arguably the best. We'll do at the end maybe like my top 5 and bottom 5 of this half of the season. I don't know though. It's kind of pointless to give a top when I'm only doing half of the season. So we'll see. But let's move on into the next episode. This is season 5, episode number 7. It debuted and aired on November the 8th of 1963. This is The Old Man in the Cave, in a post-apocalyptic settlement in 1974. Isn't that funny to hear? Post-apocalyptic 1974. I think we made it a little bit past then. The inhabitants' survival is dependent on the advice of an unseen man living in a nearby cave. This dependence is tested when a band of soldiers descends on their town. Yes, The Old Man in the Cave. Okay, so this one I actually really like. It actually stars James Coburn, who was in a ton of other Twilight Zones, whether it be Passage for Trumpet. This is one of the few where he's the lead. I think he's also in Of Late, I think, of Cliffordville. I really like James Coburn. I think he's a good actor. It was nice to see him get the lead here, as I think Goldsmith is the character's name. And basically, he's the leader of these people that have survived a bomb. There was a big bomb, and all these people are kind of famished and starving and all of these things, and they're down on their luck and stuff. And basically every day he goes out to this cave where he claims there's an old man who tells him what they can and cannot eat. And so he goes and does that. And then basically there's this really nasty guy who's actually, I might have fucked this up. I'm sorry. James Coburn is the major. I'm sorry. John Anderson is the one that's playing Goldsmith. I apologize for that. I misspoke. So James Coburn is actually the antagonist of this episode, is this kind of sergeant that shows up and he says, "Who's to say that these people shouldn't be eating out of these cans? Who's to say that they should be famished? They should be starving? I object to this." And basically, Goldsmith is saying, "Hey, listen, it's this old man in the cave. He hasn't steered us wrong. We're going to listen to him. We're going to keep listening to him." And basically what happens is James Coburn says, "The hell with him. We're going to live. We're going to enjoy. Eat what you want. Drink what you want. It's not contaminated. Go out and live your best life." And it does kind of raise an interesting morality question to me personally. And I'll tie it to some real life stuff that might offend people. And I apologize if it does, but being someone that almost died from COVID, I'll definitely try to keep it as grounded as I can. But here's the thing. Both arguments, in my opinion, present an interesting side here. Goldsmith says, let's listen to what we know. He hasn't steered us wrong. We haven't died, right? We've survived all this time. But one of the characters in the episode, to me, completely makes me question the other morality, where he says, "Listen, Goldsmith, we have survived for years, but we haven't lived." And that's a very interesting fucking argument to me, man. Very interesting. Like, let's present this. I'll present this to you guys. Let's say someone came around and said the only thing you can eat for the rest of your life is kale. You can only eat kale for the rest of your life. It's the only thing that's safe. It's the only thing we know isn't poison. Kale or death. Possible death. Yeah, you'll survive. You'll probably be miserable because kale tastes like shit, but you'll survive, right? However, is there a chance I could try a bacon cheeseburger and I might live? There's a chance I'll die, but there's a chance it's okay. I'll survive with the kale, but I'm not living until I have that fucking triple baconator, man. And that's kind of the psychology. I get both arguments here. I know there'll probably be a moralist. They'll say, fuck you, Grande. You got to eat the kale. You got to stick with, like Goldsmith, who would probably be on that side. And I understand that completely. But I get the other people that are famished too. We want to eat. We want to survive. We don't want to just survive. We want to live our best life. We survived the bomb. Isn't that good enough? Unfortunately, though, those people learn a harsh, cruel lesson by the end of this episode. But I was saying with COVID, I look at this as the COVID episode, right? There's a lot of people that, got very sick from it, me being one of them, a lot of people that didn't listen, that went out and enjoyed themselves and got sick from being out and stuff like that. Now, I wasn't one of those people. I got it from someone in the family, but still there were some people that thought, oh, this can't affect me, I'm fine, ended up contracting and getting very sick. That's more like where I kind of draw a parallel here. And I don't mean to offend anybody. Like I said, being one that almost died from it, I'm not trying to force a connection, but I kind of see a connection here personally. That's just me. At least when COVID was happening, I remember I thought of this episode. I went, oh my God, the old man in the cave. Like, for some reason. Of course, you get to the twist of this one where the awful army guy says, we're going to go up to this old man in the cave. We're going to give him a piece of our mind. They go up there, and the old man in the cave is a giant computer, which I thought was a great twist, and I never saw coming when I first saw this one. They destroy the computer, throw rocks at it, stuff like that. They start drinking wine and eating all these foods, and basically by morning, they die from the contaminated food and radiation, and the only one left standing is Mr. Goldsmith, who's basically like, I fucking tried to tell you so, but you wouldn't listen. Really good stuff, man. In my opinion, I thought that was a really good twist ending. Sad, but one of those where I got both sides. Like, I got the antagonist side, even though I thought he was a prick, the James Coburn character. I got his argument, though. Like, I get that. And I think, I dare to say, I think there's a lot of people that would agree with that argument, would say, what the fuck is the point of me living on, being starved? Then I could go out party and that's it. Like, that's going to end my life one way or the other. I get it. I why survive and be miserable when you can live it up for a few days and die happy? I don't know. Interesting morality. I don't know where people kind of stand on that, but I personally see that side of the argument for sure, for me personally. Let's see. I think we were here. Love the machine in the cave. Yeah, I think the old man in the cave is such a very classic episode, especially that twist. I agree. I think this is a classic one, man. It's sad at the end, like at the end where you're like, oh man, if they only would have listened. But like, again, I don't know if I'm alone on that. Like, I hear the morality. Like, I totally fucking get the other side. It's even, I would even say, like, Night Living Dead can kind of draw a parallel from this. It's like Cooper wants to stay in the cellar. It's the safest place. Ben wants to stay up top. It's the arguing fucking styles clashing here. And it's our inability to get along in here. Therefore, we are conquered and consumed by the zombies out there. That old tale is definitely something that George Romero would go on and make a fucking career out of, really. So I don't know. That's at least another parallel. I think you can make so many parallels here. I love Coburn and Leone's Duck You Sucker. Oh yeah, Coburn's great. That's the one with the computer. Yes, that's the one. That is absolutely the one. You are correct. I wonder if it sort of reminds me of Shyamalan's The Village. Shyamalan's The Village wasn't the twist at that. They think it's all monsters. At the end, it's like they're all like pretending it's a play or something. That movie, it's like I wanted to like it more than I ended up liking it. Like kind of a spiritual poverty. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know, man. That's a good question. One of the episodes I remember is 2 with Elizabeth McGovern and Charles Bronson. Yes, that's true. I personally think that's a weaker one. I did a graveyard on season 3, and that's one that I gave a lower grade. Like I like Charles Bronson. Elizabeth McGovern has nothing to say in the episode. I think she doesn't have a line because she's supposed to be like Russian in it, so she doesn't have a word of dialogue in it. I don't know. For me, like a lot of people say it's a series classic. I don't know. I never saw that. Like, I always thought it was a kind of a lesser episode. Twilight Zone had a lot of great actors in it. Oh, of course. Grande, I could see you doing film lecture for the company. Great courses of professors who do lectures. I'd love to do that. I don't know how I would get that job, but I would love to look into that, man. That would be great. The Old Man in the Cave, I think either it's got to be a strong B+ or an A. I think we're going to go with an A for now. I like The Old Man in the Cave. I think it's a fucking good episode. So, my opinion, Old Man in the Cave, another really solid Twilight Zone episode for me. Now, coming up next, I'm astonished. This one gets fucking hate. And I sort of love this one. This one is, I think, sort of underrated, man. This is season 5, episode 8, debuted on November the 15th of 1963. This is Uncle Simon. Caregiver Barbara Polk receives a surprise after her uncle's death. Yes, Uncle Simon. Now, this one I think is actually really, really well written by Rod Serling. In fact, I think it's one of his better pieces. I love how this one's written. It's basically the story of this niece, and she's taking care of her Uncle Simon. She's like early to mid 40s, and he basically treats her like shit. He's rich old man, he walks with a cane. He's a fucking mean rich bastard though. He's mean to her. You're a fucking cow. Give me my hot chocolate, you fucking bitch. Like basically all he says, he berates her and it's just really riding her. And at one point in the opening kind of scene, he asks her, he says, can I ask you something? Why do you stay here? And she looks at him and she goes, well, I thought I was under the impression that I was needed. And he looks back at her. He says, well, you were at a time, but I'm questioning your morality, woman. I'm questioning why you're here. And deep down inside, her answer is to get your money when your old ass drops over. But she doesn't say that. She basically is like, oh, well, I know you need me. She's trying to be babyface. And I will say this, as opposed to The Masks, where we get down the line of season 5, which is not going to be on this episode, those characters are definitely greedy, awful people for the money. This character, though, while she definitely wants the money, I don't think she was mean or like if someone talked to me like that on a daily basis, I think I'd become pretty fucking miserable too. Just saying. I don't know. Like I completely understand why she wasn't a happy person. Like I thought her performance was great. Constance Ford as Barbara is great here. And the two of them kind of arguing over stuff. Him calling her a cow, fetch me my hot chocolate, all this stuff. And one day they're arguing and they're standing on the steps. And she says, what do you do down there in that basement? I want to know what you do down there, you creepy old man. And he's basically like, get out of my way, you cow, and fetch me my hot chocolate. And basically one insult too many. And she pushes the old man down the steps and he breaks his back. And she kind of walks down and goes like if she's going to help him. And instead thinks about it like, no, I'll get his inheritance this way. I'll just say you fell. And she starts to taunt the guy as he's dying. Really dark, where she's going, I'm not gonna be facing any sorrow. I'm going to reap what you've sown. Really good. I mean, she's just like deliciously mad and evil and fed up and has just had it at this point. Really like her performance, Constance Ford. I think she does a great job here. I really like her role here. She's great as the niece. And of course, she's laid out the will. You've been left everything, but there's one condition. You have to take care of it. What's it? What the hell is it talking about? They go back and they realize that he's created a robot version of himself in the basement that is basically him, but in a robot form and is programmed to treat her like shit too. So you have this robot that was used in the Forbidden Planet saying all the stuff that he was saying to her. Barbara, fetch me my hot chocolate, Barbara. It's fucking great to me. Like, I love this one. I like, what an evil bastard. Like, I'm old, I'm dying. How can I screw this bitch out of getting my inheritance? I know I'll give her everything, but she's going to have to take care of a version of me that will never die in this robot. Fucking 1000 IQ. That's brilliant. Like, that's fucking great. Like I was like, wow, that's fucking brilliant, man. Like what a really, really good twist here. And like I said, man, Serling writes this as a champ. I really like some of the writing in this, how fucking morbid it is. Where she's saying, when you die, I'm going to open up a bottle of wine. Like, I was like, fuck, man, that's dark. Like, I don't know. I really appreciate the writing here. I really appreciate the performance from Constance Ford. I think she's great in the role as just selling the kind of persona and personality of someone who's truly fed up and depressed in their life and waiting on something to happen that's going to take time. But there's no payoff for her. There's no moment where she can kind of enjoy it. She's forever kind of trapped in this hell with Uncle Simon and fetching him his hot chocolate. I think this is a great one. For me, I'm going to say a very fucking strong A. I love Uncle Simon. I think it's one of the most underrated ones. To this point in this episode, I would say the most underrated one we're talking about here because it gets a lot of hate. I read reviews of this. I couldn't believe how bad it got. bashed. I don't know. I liked it. I guess some people would think the robot was cheesy or whatever, but I personally kind of dug it personally. I don't know. Personally liked Uncle Simon. Oh, I could see that too. Imagine I would do it for sure. I mean, I would love to. I would love to do something like this for a living, but it's hard to get a job like that. I don't even know where I'd start. Oh, the original Village of the Damned is sort of like a Twilight Zone episode. You have this small town that's cut off from the world, and all the women give birth to alien children. Yeah, I don't know. Like personally, that would sound more like Outer Limits to me. Maybe like Twilight Zone. I don't know. Maybe it could work Twilight Zone. Definitely the black and white aspect of the original, right? I think the robot. Yes, you were correct, and they used a ton of stuff for Forbidden Planet in the Twilight Zone. Like that was their go-to. Like, oh, we need a prop, Forbidden Planet. They did a ton of that stuff. I love the masks one, but you're going to hear me repeat and repeat because Twilight Zone was just so good. Oh, I love the masks too. To me, the masks is got to be one of the best episodes. It's in the top 5 of the season for sure. It's not one we're going to talk about tonight because that would be part 2. In Nightmare Before Christmas, the real faces of Lock, Shock, and Barrel, and similar to their masks, with very similar to the masks. And I love that episode too. Sterling, yeah, that I don't even know. Like maybe this was trying to be funny, but I found it quite morbid. Like I thought, like maybe that someone would laugh at the "I'm gonna open a bottle of wine after you die," but I was like, "Damn!" Like, and the whole like after the guy broke his back, she's sitting there taunting him. She's like, "What are you gonna do now?" Like, I kind of found this one morbid. Maybe it is funny, but if you have a darker sense of humor, I don't know. Like, I definitely think this one was quite. I don't know. I mean, more than one episode I love. Oh, dude, I literally probably love over 100 Twilight Zone episodes, and there was over 100 of Twilight Zone. So, I mean, it is what it is. But that is Uncle Simon, to me, an underrated one. And now we're at the halfway point of this episode where we're going to talk about Probe 7 Over and Out, which is another one I think is quite underrated. Probe 7 Over and Out debuted on November the 29th of 1963. Colonel Cook, stranded on another planet with no hope for rescue, meets a woman who is the sole survivor from another planet. This one directed by Ted Post, who I was saying before, of course, went on to direct some of the Planet of the Apes sequels. I like Ted Post. I think Ted Post is good. And I can see why he would get those jobs here because, of course, Planet of the Apes somewhat dealing with being the only isolated human, and this story being about an isolated astronaut, Colonel Cook, who crash lands on a planet unknown, and he sends in his transmission, and basically the guy on the other end says, listen, we're about to go to war, and we're probably going to bomb them, and they're going to bomb us, and basically there's going to be nobody here to send a repair, to send a ship to save you. You're basically stuck on this planet that you crash landed on. I hope it can be a life without hate. I hope it could be a life of peace. I hope it could be one without loneliness, right? Like he says to him, I hope you don't die of loneliness out there. And Colonel Cook is scared. His arm is broken. And he looks outside and there's air and there's trees and grass and stuff like that. And he's like, okay, at least I can live here, but I got to find food. I've got to find maybe a companion. And of course, he walks out of the ship and he finds this woman who doesn't speak any English. And to him, she's slightly beautiful. And they kind of have this interaction where they're drawing diagrams to one another. And he's trying to kind of force a connection there because he knows that there's nobody coming for him. There's no way he can repair his ship, especially with his busted arm. He's going to have to make do with what he's had here. And what he has is this woman. And now the twist ending is got to be one of the best in Twilight Zone history for me. I know a lot of people hate it. Like a lot of people tell you this is the stupidest, unneeded twist ending. I thought it was quite brilliant. The twist here, spoilers, major spoilers, because you'll never see this twist coming. Basically what happens is he says, hey, my name is Colonel Cook, Colonel Adam Cook. What's your name? And she says, my name is Norta, Eve Norta. Of course, they're Adam and Eve. And he says, hey, Eve, what do you do for food around here? And she grabs the apple from the tree and hands it to him because he has the busted arm. I remember when I first saw this, I went, what? Like, oh my God. Like, total knee slapper where I'm like, wow, they're fucking Adam and Eve. Like, thought it was brilliant. And then, of course, what do you call this stuff? And she says, dirt. And he goes, what? And she goes, dearth. And he goes, earth? And she goes, yeah, whatever. And he goes, all right, Eve, I think we've given this place a name. We'll call it Earth. And they kind of walk off into the sunset. And Rod Serling kind of has this great closing narration saying, oh, heard of these two, have you? Travelers of another time. And it makes you, the one question you ask is, what the fuck planet did he come from at the beginning of the episode that bombed each other? Like, where was that? I remember when I first saw this being like, what a great twist ending, because you would never think he's crash landed on Earth, but what a brilliant twist ending to me. I thought this was a great twist ending. To me, an episode that, tackles the isolationism pretty well, an episode that handles the kind of relationship between two people well. I think this is actually a better version of two with Charles Bronson, Elizabeth McGovern, like someone was saying before. I would say this is a much better episode in the fact that it's two people and one of them can't speak English. And I like the twist better here. It's very much more Twilight Zone twist to me. I like this one. I'm going to say Probe 7 over and out is going to be an A. I really like this one. I think it's one of the better twist endings for me, for sure. Let's see. I don't know if that comment was confusing above. No, you're fine. Those space ones were pretty good. Oh, totally. There's a ton of space ones too. The part where they say Adam Cook, Norda, Eve sound just like me, Tarzan, you, Jane. Of course. Yeah, that's basically what it is. The more you talk about Twilight Zone, Grande, the more I remember. Yeah, no, these are, I love rewatching them, man. Like they just, to me, they flow. They just flow. That's making me think of Third Rock from the Sun. Oh, of course. That one, the furniture kind of funny, which told you they were aliens. Look kind of funny. Mateo is here. Ciao, Grande, and everyone. Welcome, my friend. Hope all is well with you tonight, my friend. We are on Twilight Zone, and we're just about to move on to the next episode. We just talked about season 5, episode 9, which, of course, leads us to season 5, episode 10. Yes, this is the 7th is made up of phantoms. Debuted on December the 6th of 1963. On June the 25th, 1964, 3 Army National Guard soldiers on maneuvers near the Little Bighorn battle site find themselves unwittingly involved in Custer's last stand. Yes, the 7th is made up of phantoms. This is more of a missed opportunity one for me. I like it. I think it's decent, but I think it probably could have been better. This is one where I get when people say, oh, season 5 was a weaker season, or some people say it's the worst. I'll never agree with that. Season 4 is way weaker than this. This is more of a weaker effort that I think in an earlier season, like season 1, 2, or 3, would have been done way better than it was here. I'm not sure quite what went wrong here. But it's not bad either. It's just one where it's like, I don't know. Like, I know my good friend Brian, his dad loves this one, and he's a big history buff. That's probably why. It's these 3 people, and they're walking, and basically they start finding these Indian remains, like a bow and arrow and a feather cap and stuff like that. And all of a sudden they're in Custer's last stand and they're in the fight. And basically the whole episode kind of culminates where their names are on the battle plaque. Decent, but nothing great. To me, it's one of the lesser talked about episodes of this season, and understandably so. I would say the 7th is made up of phantoms is a perfect C average episode of the Twilight Zone. Nothing great, nothing to run home about, nothing necessary. I think the more of a history buff that you are, if you like Custer's Last Stand, the reading about it in a history book, I think you'd really dig this episode. I personally just am it's decent. It's nothing great. To me, it's one that I'm largely going to kind of skip over here. So it's one of those meh ones. That episode is a very time travel episode. Yeah, very, very time travel-ish feel to it. But let's move on into, it's funny that one I really have not much to say about, even though I've been spending a really long time on all of these. This next one here might be in the same boat here. This might be a part of the season where they hit a little bit of a slow patch, whereas, look at that, 7 of the first 10. Yes, 7 of the first 10 I have as an A or better. So that goes to show you how good of quality you had. 7 out of 10 or an A or better. That's something. But it's at this point now where I think the season definitely hit a little bit of a dry spell. Not to say that it wouldn't rebound, but I think it had a little bit of a dry spell right here. And the next episode up is season 5, episode 11. It debuted on December 13th of 1963. This is A Short Drink from a Certain Fountain. An aging married man convinces his brother to inject him with a youth serum. Yes, A Short Drink from a Certain Fountain. This is your classic episode where it's an old rich man. He has a hot, really hot wife. We can get this actress's name right because she's probably the best thing in the episode. Ruta Lee as his wife, Flora. That is a good looking fucking woman, man. Wow. She plays this kind of trophy wife. He's this old man. He has all this money, but he's old and he wants to relive his youth and he's depressed about it. His wife is, you get the idea that she might be seeing other men behind his back and treating him like shit and using his money and stuff like that. Unfortunate, but basically his brother comes up with this youth serum and says, "Hey, I don't think this is going to work yet. We're still testing this." And basically the billionaire says, "Listen, I need it now. My life is crashing upon me. Everything's tumbling down. She's definitely going to start cheating on me and using my money. And I don't want all that to happen. I don't want to lose her. I don't want to lose my life. I want it now. Like I don't want to wait for tomorrow because tomorrow might be too late." And of course, he drinks the youth serum against his better judgment to just kind of appease her. And of course, at first it works. He's Benjamin Button, aging in reverse, and he's a gorgeous guy now. And they're dancing and they're planning this cruise and all of this stuff. And then basically, unfortunately, what happens is he starts to age in the wrong direction too much. And then all of a sudden, he's a child. And then all of a sudden, the episode is coming to an end, and he's a baby. And the brother says to Flora, he says, "Listen, you're going to have to raise this poor bastard. Like you're the reason he took it. He was afraid he was going to lose you. And now look what you've done to my brother. Like he drank this youth serum against his better judgment under the pressure that you would cheat on him and use all his money." And I think this is a very interesting episode. Now, it's not a groundbreaker. It's not a classic. It's one of those where it's like, I think it's a decent idea executed to a decent way. Nothing great though. Like to me, it's like, I would say if I had to rate this one, which I'm going to, I would say A Short Drink from a Certain Pound's like a B. I don't think it's great. I don't think it's bad. I think it's like very middle of the road, but I'd say it's slightly above average because I don't mind the themes here. Like the whole idea of what would I do? And the answer might be, yeah, I might try it. I might try the youth serum. Why not? Like if it can make me young again and I can go on a cruise with my hot wife and have hot sex and fucking, be young again, who wouldn't want that? But you got to be able to test the kinks out first. And of course, he doesn't do that and becomes a child. And she is stuck taking care of him for the rest of his life, which I think is actually, just desserts for her. But I don't know. Personally, at the same time, for me, I feel like he kind of should have just left her. Like if she started to use his money and try to sleep with other guys, I think that's the point where you're like, you don't deserve me then go. Like I get it, she was hot, but like my guy, you gotta have a little fucking respect for yourself. I'm not saying don't try that youth serum when it's tested down the road, but not to do it for her. And unfortunately he does. And she gets the brunt of it. Unfortunately, he gets to relive his whole life again, which I think is kind of fun. It might be unfortunate, but at the same time, it's kind of cool. I mean, who wouldn't want to be that young again? I don't know. Just a thought. Let's see. That episode is called Execution. Oh, okay. You're responding to, yes, Execution's a fun one. This episode is, Fountain of Youth episode for sure. Twilight Zone wise, but I don't know. I think it's a solid one. Nothing great, but something that I think is definitely passable. This next one definitely to me below average one for me. This is season 5, episode 12. It debuted on December the 20th of 1963. This is 90 years without slumbering. An old man believes that his life will end the moment his grandfather clock stops ticking. Yes, this one brings back Ed Wynn, who was, of course, a great, great character actor. I always loved Ed Wynn. And people that remember the first season will remember One for the Angels, where he plays Lou Bookman, and he's this street pitch salesman who it's his dream to make the ultimate sales pitch, and he meets death, played by Murray Hamilton. And that's a great episode. I love that one. That one's much better than this episode here. But with that being said, I like to see Ed Wynn back. It's nice to see Ed Wynn back on the Twilight Zone. I wish it was a better script. It's written by George Clayton Johnson, who also wrote A Game of Pool, which is a much better episode than this. I think George Clayton Johnson did the story. Richard DeRoy did the teleplay. I don't know if that had something to do with it. I think this one's kind of poorly written. It's basically Ed Wynn. He's an old man, and he believes that if his clock breaks down, he'll die because the clock was winded at the minute of his birth, and it's been ticking for all 76 years of his life. What? Like, I don't know, like kind of weird. And he goes to see a psychiatrist at a point. He's trying to convince the psychiatrist, oh, I'll die if this thing breaks down. But I think, I don't know. I see Slasher Fred saying this, 90 years without something's more of a comedy. I don't know. Like, maybe you're right. But watching this one, I didn't really get that vibe, at least upon a rewatch. Maybe I need to revisit it again. Granted, I watched it yesterday. This particular one, I think it's having something to say about, letting life end when it's your time, right? Like the symbolism of clock. You believe that it controls your life. The clock ain't going to tick forever. You're not going to tick forever. It's a time of just letting it go. I think that's maybe what it's trying to say. Like, enjoy your life. Don't live in fear. Embrace your old age. And when it's your time, it's your time. I think that's the point of this. But with that being said, it's like, I don't know. It's kind of weak for me. I don't know. Maybe I missed the point. Maybe an 80-year-old man could relate to this episode better than I could. But at that point, like, what 80-year-old man would really give a fuck? Like, what would an 80-year-old man really watch this and go, "Oh, I relate to this"? Like, maybe. I think this episode is what's off is the demographic. Like, a lot of people say, "Oh, Grande, you're an old soul." I agree. I definitely am old school. But I couldn't relate to this one at all. And maybe I'm not supposed to. Maybe, like Slasher Fred said, maybe this is supposed to be kind of for laughs. I didn't laugh once. I don't know. Maybe it just wasn't my sense of humor. I don't know. I think this is a swing and a miss, though, for me. I don't know, but personally. Edwin is also a classic Disney actor who appeared in many Disney movies, like the original Alice in Wonderland and the original Mary Poppins. Of course, he's the Mad Hatter, I believe, which is iconic. Grande, that might be some under-the-gun writing for Rod Serling and company, where maybe the writing was rushed for a deadline, so they couldn't iron out the kinks. That's possible. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Like this, it doesn't get high ratings this episode, so I'm not alone. But it's one that just, like, I don't know, it's kind of largely forgettable. Like, it's a very forgettable zone. Like, if it wasn't for Ed Wynn, it might be an F. Like, I love Ed Wynn. So that alone, I give it more than that. Wasn't Ed Wynn in Pet Sematary? I don't think so, no. Reminds me of Dorian Gray. Yes, like I would say a boring version of Dorian Gray. No, that was Fred Gwynn. Yeah, Ed Wynn, Fred Gwynn. I got you. I got the Pat's in the house. Have cheatable view. Welcome, my friend. Welcome. If I had to rank this one, 90 Years Without Slumbering, I'm going to go with the second D of this episode. I don't like this one that much. It maybe is probably, I think most would give it a C because it has a nice heart to it. It has Ed Wynn, but I think it's a below average zone. For me, it's like, it's one of the more forgettable fucking Twilight Zones out there. I would say 90 Years Without Slumbering is a D. That's just me, though. I think a lot of people would disagree that are veteran fans of the show, but it is what it is. Maybe it would hit somebody different than it hit me. I don't know. But on to the next. This is the unlucky episode here. Season 5, episode 13, debuted on December the 27th of 1963. This was the last 1963 episode, of course, before we got our last final year of the original series in 1964 the following week. This is Ring-a-Ding Girl. Movie star Bunny Blake receives a ring from her hometown, which is giving her warnings to come home while she flies cross country. Yes, this is an Earl Hamner Jr. joint, which I love Earl Hamner. I think he did a great job. Of course, I always remember The Hunt, which is my favorite Earl Hamner Jr. episode, where it's this old man and his dog Rip, and they go raccoon hunting, and basically they die. And they don't realize that. And basically what happens is they're in purgatory and they're walking around and they almost enter hell. And basically what happens is the gatekeeper won't let the dog in. And the whole kind of point of the episode is a man can walk into hell with both eyes open, but not even the devil could fool a dog. I thought that was brilliant. I love The Hunt. I think that's a great episode. This one, again, I'm kind of middle of the road on. It stars Maggie McNamara as Bunny Blake. She's like this famous actress, and she gets this magical ring that tells her to return home. And there's this great big picnic that they're supposed to have, and there's going to be a tragedy, and she basically foresees the tragedy in the ring. I guess it's sort of like Final Destination in a way, like where she knows a bad thing is going to happen and people are going to die, and she has to like stop it from happening and basically sacrifices herself. I mean, okay, it's okay. I think it's been done better. I would say it's been done much better. I would say Final Destination is much better than this. But at the same time, I don't know. Like I maybe there'll be fans of this one. I think what this one does well is the acting is good, the characters are good. I think the plot is so out there that it fits for a Twilight Zone, but at the same time, I don't know. This is one of those that I think is largely skippable too. And there's some people that love this one, but I'm not one of them. Love the Twilight Zone. The twist in that episode is very shocking. I wonder if everyone in that episode was just imagining by Bunny Blake was there. I mean, it's possible. because it's basically like the twist ending is, oh, she died, and everyone around is like, oh, but we just saw her, kind of thing. I don't know. This is one that maybe I rewatched it and I didn't feel much for it, but I see a lot of positive reviews. So maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm being too harsh on this one. I'm gonna say middle of the road, man. I want to say probably like a C for Ring a Ding Girl. Maybe it's a D. I don't know. For me, it's I think like very average. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Ring a Ding Girl, but this next one though, finally to me breaks the trend of like kind of subpar episodes, that kind of string that we had in the middle here from I guess episode what was it episode 9 I guess would it be? Let's look at this list. I guess it would be episode like episode 10 to now. I think it hit a little bit of a wall this season. But this is the episode here where I think they started getting things back on track. And this is season 5, episode 14. This is You Drive. After being involved with a hit and run accident which resulted in killing a child, Mr. Oliver Pope is haunted by his car. Yes, another Earl Hamner Jr. joint. This one actually, it's back to back, funny enough. I love this one. This is a much better Earl Hamner script for me than the previous one. And I want to get the director's name here. John Brom, who directed quite a few Twilight Zones. He does a great job directing this one. I really think this is a fucking good episode. Basically tells the story of Oliver Pope, who is driving along his car. He's kind of a stressed out, everyday man, blue collar guy. And he accidentally runs over this kid on a bicycle. And he gets out of the car. He checks on him. He's afraid. He's shaken up. And basically, he takes a run for it. It's a hit and run. And he gets in the car. And this woman sees him, but she can't clearly identify him. He hits and runs back into his house. And then basically, the rest of the episode is him being haunted by his own guilt. And the car itself is haunting him. Like playing music that reminds him of being guilty. In the middle of the night, he'll be trying to sleep. He just falls asleep from the stress and fear. And the car will, like the alarm will go off to wake him up. Very effective sequences here. Of course, there's one point where he hears on the telephone that they've caught the guy that did it. And he's thinking, oh my God, they're going to knock on my door any minute. But they've accused a innocent person, even more guilt. This is the episode about the horrors of guilt and how that guilt can eat you alive if you let it. And I think it's really well tackled here. I think it's really well written by Earl Hamner. And I think the direction especially is great, where at one point he says, screw this car. I'm not going anywhere near this car. I'm just going to walk to work today. I don't even care how early I have to get up. So he starts his walk to work, and the car opens the garage door and drives after him and almost ends up running him over. And basically what happens is he gets in the back seat of the car, and the car drops him off at the police station. Like, you better go fucking confess what you've done. I thought that was really smart. And it's basically at the end, he realizes I did a bad thing. Like, did I mean to kill this kid? Absolutely not. But I have to own up. I have to face the music. I have to face jail time. I hit and I ran, and I reaped and I sowed. And it's basically someone kind of having to reach their ultimate consequence. And I thought it was really well done here. I think the direction for sure is a really, really good one. The cinematography here, I really like this one. I think You Drive is a really smart, strong episode. And like I said, it's one that broke the kind of trend here where you got 5 or 6 episode kind of stagnant point in this season, where this one, I think, really kind of got things back on track. For me, You Drive is going to be, I would say, a strong B. I would say a strong B+ for You Drive. I like this one. I think we were here. There was also the movie Bunny Blake is Missing, where a woman finds her daughter missing, but no one can find anything that she exists. Yeah, okay, so it sounds like you're a fan of the episode. Maybe I got to give it another. I did watch it just yesterday, and I still kind of feel blah on it. You Drive is a pre-Stephen King's Christine. Sure. That's sort of making me think of the Hitchhiker one. Oh, I love it. Her name is Nan Adams. I love The Hitchhiker. That's a fucking great one. Christine meets the machinist. Sure, absolutely. Tom is here. The Undead of Night. You Drive. Fun episode until the kid dies. Kept waiting to hear. Thanks for the ride, lady. Imagine that. Yeah, the Hitchhiker episode of the Creepshow 2 is definitely like the more fun R-rated version of this. But this one is kind of morbid, right? Because the kid dies. It's not like, oh, the kid survived and, he hit and ran or whatever. No, the kid, and it almost kind of to fit the guilt mode, the kid kind of had to die, which is sad. I like that one though, man. I really like You Drive. I think it's good. Yes, Inger Stevens, who tremendous actress. She was in Hitchhiker and also in Lateness of the Hour, which was one of the videotape season 2 ones, which I love that one too. She's great in both those episodes. Weird thing, man, and I'm happy you brought up her name, and I shouldn't be happy about this, but it's the truth. She had the weirdest death I've ever heard anyone ever having. Like the weirdest death ever. If you go and Google Inger Stevens' death, someone needs to explain to me how that woman died. Like it is bizarre. Like maybe we could, I mean, if you guys want, we could take a detour because we only have like 4 more episodes to talk about here. I tell you what, let's go Inger Stevens because I got to share this with the world. This is a weird story of how this woman died. Because I looked her up when I remember when I first saw these episodes. She was Swedish, really beautiful woman. Died really young, unfortunately. She was at the ripe old age of, was she 36? Yeah, 36. Oh, she didn't even make it 36, 35. Let me click on how she died because it's weird. Okay. This is a really crazy story right here. I like when I read this, I was like disturbed deeply. On the morning of April 30th, 1970, Stevens' roommate and companion Lola McNally found Stevens on the kitchen floor of their Hollywood Hills home. According to McNally, Stevens opened her eyes, lifted her head, and tried to speak, but was unable to utter any sound. McNally told police that she had spoken to Stevens the previous night and had seen not a sign of trouble. Stevens died in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. On arrival, medics removed a small bandage from her chin that revealed a small amount of blood oozing from a cut that have appeared to have been a few hours old. Los Angeles County Coroner Dr. Thomas Noguchi attributed Stevens' death to acute barbiturate poisoning, and the death was eventually ruled a suicide. What the fuck? What the fuck? She, like, someone explain that to me? Like, I don't understand this. It sounds like an OD, but she on her chin? What? Like, what drug would go, like, I don't, granted, I've never done a drug in my life, so maybe I wouldn't fucking know, but I am so baffled, because if you click on what this is, it's a class of depressant drug that are chemically derived for barbituric acid. So was she taking an antidepressant that did she take the pill or did she like inject? Like, what the fuck? Like, that is a weird way to die to me. Like, and great actress. I wish she had lived longer, man. That's really sad that she was depressed and died in such a weird way. But I don't know, man. It sounds interesting. Supposed to have OD on Reds. What's Reds? Well, I don't know what Reds is. You have to tell me. She fell from being high, hit her chin on the floor. Yeah, but like what? But like it doesn't say that. I don't know. It's just so weird though. Like what is the fresh? Like why mention the cut? Like what if she has a small cut on her chin? How did that contribute to any of it? Like I don't know. It doesn't make sense. Went on an infamous career at LA's Corner. Did he? Okay. I don't know. I thought that was just fascinating. I was like, what the fuck? I remember when I looked her up being like, who the fuck dies like that? It's a weird death. Like I always imagined that she fucking okay. All right. You're dead. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know. It's just something I always found very odd. And I was like, man, I got to ask somebody someday. So, okay. Reds. See, you're far more knowledge on that than I am. I have no clue, but we'll go back to the zone. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be so morbid on here, but it's just something that always, I was like, what the fuck? Like, what a weird way to die. Like, and she was perfectly fine beforehand. And would antidepressant make you fall? And it would make you not be able to speak? Like it would incapacitate you to that level where you couldn't speak. It sounds to me like she had a stroke. That's what it sounds like to me. Like a stroke would be, I can't speak, but I'm trying to, or whatever. I don't know. That's what it sounds like to me, but I'm no fucking, I don't know. I'm no doctor, so I don't fucking know. But enough of the death talk. I apologize for that. Let's move on into one of our next episodes. We got 4 more to go here. This is season 5, episode 15, debuted on January the 10th of 1964. This is The Long Morrow. Before leaving on a decades-long mission, astronaut Douglas Stansfield meets and falls in love with a woman. Yes, The Long Morrow. So this one I actually really quite like. It's more of a love story where this astronaut at the beginning of the episode, it's his lifelong dream to change the world for the better and accomplish all these things. And he's sitting in this office of his boss, and his boss says, listen, we're going to trust you on this big mission, and you're going to be successful with it. It's your dream come true. There's only one catch. It's going to take 40 years of your life. And the guy's 31 at the moment. So, and even though the actor looks far older than 31, whatever, he's 31. And basically what happens is he says, listen, you're going to live the better part of your life up there. You're going to come back. You'll be 71 years old. And it is what it is. And the guy says, what about like a cryogenically freezing me so I won't age? Would that work? And the guy says, yeah, we could do that. We can absolutely do that. So they find a way to do that. In the meantime, while they're figuring that out, he meets this kind of woman that also works in the building. He falls in love with her. And the two of them go out to dinner and they share passionate kisses. And it's a really nice love story. And basically he tells her, listen, I'm going to go away for 40 years. I don't want you to put your life on hold for me. And she says, listen, I'll wait for you. Like, I'll wait for you. And he says, listen, I'm going to come back and I'm still going to be 31. I'm going to come back and you'll be 71. So it's not going to work. Like, why don't you just go and live your life? And she says, listen, I love you. I don't want to do that. And he says, listen, think of yourself. Think of what's better. Go ahead. And so he goes off on his space mission. And basically what happens is it's the old switcheroo when you get to the twist here. He goes off and decides halfway through the transmission, I don't want to grow old. I mean, I don't want to not age. I want to grow old. And when I come back, she'll be 71 and maybe we can die together. We'll both be 71 and we can live happily ever after. So he elects to not be aged, whereas she decides to get cryogenically frozen for 40 years while unbeknownst to him, to sort of surprise him. Big fucking mistake. He comes back 71-year-old saggy ass man, Limp Bizkit, and she's still beautiful 26-year-old woman. Oh shit, like as they kind of meet at the end and it's kind of like, oh man, like we're on the different pages here. Really, I think a really good one, like a really kind of nice love story where both loved the other enough to do the opposite. And unfortunately, it works against them. Kind of a heartbreaking ending and scenario where you're like, oh man, like I wish they could have lived happily ever after, both at the same age, whether it had been 71 or whether it had been 31. It would have been nice when they lived happily ever after. But that's your Twilight Zone twist. And they kind of rejoice after 40 years of not seeing each other. And it's almost like a minute has not gone by, except one is aged, the other is not. I thought it was a nice one. I think this is a nice, like heartwarming one. One that I don't know if it's a series classic, but it's definitely one that I quite really enjoy. And I think it's kind of underrated. The Long Morrow, I'm going to come in at like a B+ for this. I think it's like solid. You can make the argument for A, but I think a solid B+ is fine here for me. I don't know. What if the drug was liquid and went through the cut and that entered the system so quick? That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking something more along the lines of that. Because it's too weird. Like it's a small cut. It's not like if she fell and like cracked her chin open, I would think it'd be a fucking gash. From what that says, it's like a tiny cut. So I'm thinking that I think the same way. I completely think that too. Maybe that antidepressant. I don't know. Like I don't know, man. I think it's very interesting kind of story. I love the part when the woman says it doesn't make a difference, and he says, "Oh, it does make a big difference," because it does. It really does. But it's true. Their love conquered all, and it's a nice kind of message to me. I like the message there. I think it's sweet. Like I like this one a lot. I think it's a nice one for me. It's a good love story here. All right, Gary 7. Is that the name of the actor? Oh no, I don't see that. I don't know. It's directed by Robert Floyd, written by Serling, and I think it's a good Serling script, a solid Serling script. So Long Morrow to me, solid B+. Final 3 episodes here of this episode. So let's get underway with season 5, episode 16. This is the self-improvement of Salvador Ross. Salvador Ross has a unique talent where he can trade physical characteristics with other people and will do anything to get the love of Leah Maitland. Yes, the self-improvement of Salvador Ross. Now, this one was based on a short story by Henry Slazer, written by Jerry McNeely, which was not a name that is very synonymous with the Twilight Zone. This might be the only episode he ever wrote. I actually like this one too, for the most part. Where it ends is kind of iffy for me, but I guess you could be the judge. It basically tells the story of this kind of sleazeball named Salvador Ross, and he has the hots for this woman played by Gail Cobe, who's beautiful. I think she's a beautiful lady. She's also in like World of Difference and In His Image. She's been in a few Twilight Zones before this. She's this beautiful woman that he's seeking, and basically her father doesn't approve of him. He knows he's a slime ball. He knows he's just after her as a prize or as a trophy or after sex. He's not in love with her for the right reasons, basically. And the father knows this. He's this kind of wheelchair bound guy. And Salvador Ross is trying to win over her affection, and he's just angry that he cannot get what he wants. He wants her. And it's to prove something to himself. It's not even just out of love. It's really just to prove that he can get what he wants. It's really more proving to himself here, which is an interesting psychology. And basically at one point he, out of frustration, punches a wall and breaks his hand. And he rushes himself to the hospital, and he's sitting in this bed alongside his hospital bedmate, who is this old man who has a bad congestion. And he says, "Oh man, I trade my bad cough for your broken hand any day." And he says, "You got a deal, buddy." Basically, the two men go to sleep, and when he wakes up, his hand is healed and he has a cough. And he realizes, "Oh my God, I could trade characteristics with people." So if he had said, "Oh, let's say the other guy had a broken leg and he had the broken hand, oh, I'd switch with you," he would have woke up with a broken leg. Very interesting concept. And I think it's pretty interestingly done here, as he gets out of the hospital with the congestion, and then he goes to this billionaire and says, "Hey, how would you like to trade spaces? Like you're going to get my youth. I'll get your money, your apartment, your villa, all of that. And I'm going to be old." And the guy says, "Yeah, sure, buddy. Like, okay, to hit the road." Everyone basically just says, "Yeah, sure, hit it." But by saying, "Yeah, sure," they agree to the deal. And basically he becomes this old billionaire overnight, and he has this nice villa. Oh my God. Okay. So he's gone from broken hand to not broken hand, from no money to billionaire, but now he's an old man. What's he going to do? He calls room service and says, "Hey, what would you trade a year of your life for, kid?" He's a 19-year-old kid. And the kid says, "Oh, I wouldn't trade my years for anything." And he says, "Oh, yeah, what about these?" And he starts to try to bribe the kid off. And he says, "Tomorrow you'll be 20 years old, and you'll be from 19 to 20, and you'll have a lot of money in your pocket. You sold a year of your life." Okay, whatever. Leaves. And then he wakes up the next day and he's young again. And then basically he starts doing this to trade years with all these younger people, 1 year here, 1 year there, so he can keep eternal youth. Thought that was really interesting. He basically goes to the daughter. He's trying to woo her over. "Now I have money. Now I'm even more suave. I've taught myself to be more sophisticated. I've taught myself to speak better." But she realizes that was never the problem. It wasn't that he was a bad lover. It wasn't that he, didn't want her, didn't desire her enough. It was that he didn't have compassion. And she says, "That's the one thing you can't buy. You cannot buy compassion. And if you don't have compassion, you cannot be my lover. You can't be my husband." And she kind of walks out the door on him, and he's upset and heartbroken. "I've done all of this to change and self-improve," as tense the title episode. And he goes to the father, and the father says, that she's right. You don't have compassion. You're a heartless bastard. And that's why I knew that from day one. And that's why I don't want you anywhere near her. So take a hike. And basically off screen, he buys the compassion from the father. And here is where I think the episode kind of collapses. We're up to this point. Interesting. He buys the compassion from the father, and he's, "Oh, I love her. At first it was just a trophy, but now I'm head over heels." He's empathetic now. And because of this, the father goes, "Oh, I see you're empathetic, but I'm not. You sold your compassion to me yesterday." And he shoots him. Like, what? Like, he shoots the guy fucking dead there. I'm like, kind of a weak one. Like, I think it's a weak ending in an otherwise very fun episode where he's trading places with all these people. I thought that was kind of cool. It was sort of like the different take on The Four of Us Are Dying, which is an episode where this guy can change his face to different people and he's pretending to be different people. I would say this one's better than that. I like this one a little bit better than that. But at the same time, I think the ending is rather weak. Like, the guy just gets shot down dead after all of that self-improvement because he sold his compassion. And this guy, because he has no compassion, decides to just murder him. Like, a little bit weird to me. A little bit, one step too far to me. I think it could have been reworked. This is one I wish it kind of had a rewritten ending, and I think it would have been great. Anthony, speaking of the Twilight Zone guy, the legend himself is here. Fever Dreamlight Theater. Welcome, my friend. Hey, Grande. Hey, all. Going to have to catch up, but better late than ever. Dude, we got 2 more episodes to go, and one of them might be my favorite, so I'm happy you're here now, man. Hope all is well with you tonight. The self-improvement of Salvador Ross, I'm going to say, is a solid B-plus episode of the Twilight Zone as well. It's just one where the ending kind of lets it down for me. But overall, acting, idea, performances, I think it's pretty good. I think it's a solid enough episode as a whole. But coming up next might just be the best episode of the season. might just be one of the most underrated ones. As good brother Brett stands in. Hope you're doing good, man. Brett, welcome. Hope all's well. I don't know. Are you a returning person? I don't know. Brett. I don't know. I don't know a Brett. If I'm forgetting you, please remind me. I apologize. But we're on to arguably my favorite of the season. And this is season 5, episode number 17. This is number 12, looks just like you. In a future society, everyone must undergo an operation at age 19 to become beautiful and conform to society. One young woman desperately wants to hold onto her own identity. Yes, number 12 looks just like you. Of course, this stars Colin Wilcox, who was also in To Kill a Mockingbird, and I always remembered her from Jaws 2. It also has Richard Long in it, who was also in the season 3 episode Person or Persons Unknown. And it actually has 2 voluptuous models that were models at that time, Pamela Austin as Val and Susie Parker as Lana. Susie Parker at this time was the highest paid model in the world, which is crazy enough. So getting her for this episode probably was not the cheapest thing in the world, but I don't know. I personally think she's really beautiful looking woman. Like I could see why she was the highest paid model in the world because she is quite beautiful. But her performance and her acting here is really good and one of her only acting performances ever. But this one, in my humble opinion, is the best written episode arguably of this season. And it's one of the best overall from in terms of acting, story, plot, psychology, score. I think the score in this one might be my favorite isolated Twilight Zone score that there ever was. It's so haunting. There's so much to get into with this one. Let me get to comments before I really dive in, though. This episode sort of deals with not being afraid to be the ugly. This girl doesn't want to look like everyone else. Exactly. What up, Grande? Honky Digital's in the house. Welcome, my friend. That number 12 one, I think, might draw comparison to Logan's Run. Sure. Although you can't stand that movie. Cup of Instant Smile. Yes, they drink the Cup of Instant Smile here. This one, I mean, I love the narrations. We can even start with the narrations alone. Rod Serling. Given the chance, what young girl wouldn't happily exchange a plain face for a lovely one? What girl could refuse the opportunity to be beautiful? For want of a better estimate, let's call it the year 2000. At any rate, imagine a time in the future where science has developed the means of giving everyone the face and body he dreams of. It may not happen tomorrow, but it happens now in the Twilight Zone. So very cool intro to me, really cool one. And basically we follow our lead character, Miss Wilcox, Colleen Wilcox, as she is this young girl who is, going to have the surgery done, but she doesn't want it. And she discusses all these wonderful times she had with her father, who committed suicide, sadly enough. And she discusses how they spoke about literature and how they read about real, true beauty, and how they spoke together about not just hobbies, but what made people people. And it was not more than just hobbies and character traits. It was aspirations. It was what made you at the end of the day. And I thought that was a really beautiful thing of when she's giving that performance and trying to explain to all these people around her that he was a beautiful man before he got that transformation, and how that transformation turned his life sour and eventually led him to kill himself. And in this world of the futuristic world, it seems like everyone gets married and divorced every other day. And it seems like everybody looks like everybody. And you have these number models, right, where you can pick what number you want to be. I picked number 12. I think that's everyone's favorite. And there's number 8 and all of these different numbers. And of course, Richard Long and of course the other 2 models, they play different characters throughout the episode, but they're technically playing the same model, right? He's number 10 and she's number 12 and she's number 8. I thought that was a great concept. What a great idea for an episode here, as this woman that doesn't want to conform to society, who doesn't want to be beautiful, quote unquote, because once everyone is beautiful, her argument is that everyone will be ugly because there's no difference. If there's 100 number 8s and 100 number 12s, that's boring. You all look the same. We got to have a little bit of variety here. It's almost like chocolate, right? There's Hershey bars, there's Reese's peanut butter cups, there's Twix. But what if there was nothing else? Oh, there's nothing else? You know what? Every now and again, I want to have a goddamn Snickers. Every now and again, I'm going to want to have a Kit Kat. Every now and again, I'm going to want a Now and Later. And that, granted, I know that last one's not chocolate, but you know what I mean? Like you want variety in life. And if everyone's just the same old, everyone's just a Hershey bar, that shit's going to run out. That shit's going to be boring after a while. Everyone, she's a Hershey bar? Yeah, so is my wife. Doesn't matter. I love that. I think it's so smart. Such an interesting theme here to kind of tackle, and I think it's really well done here. Let's see. Of course, what exactly is the definition of real beauty? Or maybe it's something you just come to appreciate with age, or maybe partially age. Yeah, Grande, like loving art rather than basing your life and looks on it. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly. I think it's a good analogy because it's kind of the thing. Like you read about all of these things, but you have to read into them and kind of intercept what they mean. I really like this. There's scenes where she goes to psychiatrist, and they're saying you're out of your mind. You should want to be beautiful. That's it. At the end of the day, have a cup of instant smile and shut your mouth. You're going to be beautiful like everyone else is. And she doesn't want to conform. She doesn't want to be brainwashed. And there's a great scene where she finally breaks down, where her friend Val is saying, I don't understand what's so bad about it. What are you so sad about? And she says, listen, you just can't understand. You just can't understand. And she starts crying her eyes out. You just don't understand. And she tries to make a break for it. She tries to run out of the hospital. She doesn't want to have the procedure. They kind of grab her arm in arm, and she realizes it's inevitable. She has to conform alongside it. And to me, it's a great episode up until that point, but the true greatness is the ending. The isolated score, and to me, one of the greatest fade to blacks in the history of television, as we are watching her mother, Lana, her friend Val, and of course, Richard Long's character, the surgeon. They're all waiting for her to get out of the surgery. And she comes out almost like a brainwashed woman. Mother, Val, what do you think? And she looks in the mirror, and they start playing this creepy, isolated score. I can't do it justice, but it's do-do, 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 do-do. Creepiest fucking score ever. As she looks in the mirror, and you can see that beautiful woman that we had been watching the whole episode, that everyone was saying was an ugly duckling, that thought for herself and read poetry and talked about the true beauty of what it is to be a different looking human being, looks in the mirror, completely brainwashed, turns and says, the nicest part of all, Val, I look just like you. And she looks in the mirror kind of, admiring herself, as Rod Serling gives this great closing narration, portrait of a young lady in love with herself. Improbable, perhaps, but in an age of plastic surgery, bodybuilding, and an infinity of cosmetics, let us hesitate to say impossible. These and other strange blessings may be waiting for us in the future, which is, after all, the Twilight Zone. And there's a great, she turns and breaks the fourth wall, and this creepy, sinister smile as we fade to black. It is one of the most haunting smiles, in my opinion, ever. I actually would love to get the smile up here if it's on here. I would love to get that last shot, because it's just so fucking frightening. Doesn't look like it's on here, unfortunately. But if you've seen this, you know what I'm talking about. That final shot of just the happy instant smile, boom, fade to black. Great stuff to me. I'd say arguably the best episode of this season, arguably the best episode I've talked about on this episode, and to me, a slam dunk S tier. So let's get back to the tier maker here. I'm going to just make this back here. I would say a slam dunk S tier episode. I love that one. I love number 12, Looks Just Like You. I think it's a fucking absolute masterpiece of the Twilight Zone, and one that, just all around, I don't think there's anything bad about it. Colleen Wilcox gives one of the best Twilight Zone performances, and one of the rare female leads, and I think she does a great job. I really like this one. Definitely one of my favorites of the season, for sure. Not so far-fetched compared to today's age. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. All the plastic surgery that goes on now, I love that they say, let's call it the year 2000. It's sure, you can call it the year 2000. It works. Definitely works for me. I don't know. I think it's quite powerful. It's sort of like the Kardashians. Sure. There's also a novel I read in college called Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which is a Ray Bradbury joint. That's one that's very much like the Kardashians. I remember actually on the test, they had a question, and it was what characters in the book relate to what real life people, and the answer was the Kardashians. That was shit you remember from college, even though I only graduated college not that long ago, not even 5 years ago. It's making me think of Bryce Dallas Howard episode in Dark Mirror. I've heard about that one. I really, really, really want to watch it. I have not seen that episode, so I'll be watching that. I wonder if that sort of fascist or communist societies. Sorry to get political out there. No, don't worry about it at all. Yes, those smiles are so vacant. It's like the people are empty. Yes, and that's the point. It's like if people keep doing this, we're all going to be empty. And I like that she's trying to warn us, but at the end of the day, it's almost like she's brainwashed by the whole thing. At the end, she just becomes one of them. And I think that's a scary way to end it, where she doesn't even know. Like the girl we watched the first 20 minutes is not that same girl at the end. She's number 8 now. Her whole personality, her whole existence has gone from being an intelligent, beautiful young lady. And when I say beautiful, maybe not physically beautiful, but emotionally beautiful and intellectually beautiful. There's different types of beauties out there. It's not just big yits and ass, although we all love those things too. But like I'm saying, intellectually, she was a beautiful girl that wanted to look how she wanted to look and wanted to be liked and loved for who she was, is erased. Great one. Really great one for me. It also gives me a Stepford Wives vibe. Sure, absolutely. Okay, got to get going. Take care, everyone. Sean, thank you so much for watching, brother. We're on the last episode anyway, so I appreciate that, man. Thank you for staying almost the whole time. Appreciate it. And thank you again, like I said, for the kind words this past week on your show, man. It means a lot. I appreciate that. Thank you, man. And congrats on 1,000. The story Do Android's Dream of Electric Sheep was later turned into the classic film Blade Runner. That's true. That's true. And for honesty, I like that movie better. Maybe Rod Serling felt his goal in life was for the betterment of society. I mean, maybe, definitely maybe. I don't know. I personally, I think that guy was just way ahead of his time. Rod Serling is one of the most brilliant people that there ever was. It's a shame he died so damn young. This one, it actually was written by Charles Beaumont, which is interesting enough. This was a Beaumont episode, not even Serling. But my guess is those closing narrations were definitely Rod Serling. But we're on our last episode of the show here. I won't keep you guys in suspense. This is season 5, part 1, and we're going to wrap it after this one. Boy, you know the old expression, always save the best for last. Well, that is quite the opposite. We have saved the worst for last. Season 5, episode 18, Black Leather Jackets. Debuted on January the 31st of 1964. 3 leather jacket wearing, motorcycle riding men invade a peaceful neighborhood. Earl Hamner Jr. joint. Wow, this might be the worst Earl Hamner episode out there in my opinion. I don't know. I personally don't like this one. I think it's quite goofy. It's basically these 3 motorcyclists that wear black leather jackets ride into town, and they are aliens. And basically one of them falls in love with this random schoolgirl, and they're having these weird discussions around a picnic table. And they're also talking to their headmaster, and it's just the only shot is this giant eye on a television screen. It's very, this is to me bad cheese. This is an episode that is an example of bad cheese. It's still cheese, but it stanks, and it's molded, and it's fucking bad cheese. This is just, I don't think there's any other way to describe this episode. I think there is a group of people out there that would love it in a way that's so bad it's good. And maybe it is, but I personally don't see that with this one. I don't think it's the worst of the season. To me, the worst of the season and the worst of the series would be season 5, part 2, Sounds and Silences. I think that's the worst episode of the Twilight Zone that there ever was. But there's some people that would say Bewitching Pool is worse than this. No way. There's some people that would say Come Wander With Me is worse than this. No way. There are some people that would say Brain Center Whipples is worse than this. No way. I think this is worse than all 3 of those combined. Absolutely. Not even close, for me at least. Black Leather Jackets, believe it or not, it's going to stay right there. It's going to stay at an F. So this is season 5 episode, or season 5 episode, or part 1, if you will, kind of ranked. We have our 3 S tiers: Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, Living Doll, number 12, Looks Just Like You. And then, of course, we have 5 A's: In Praise of Pip, Steel, Old Man in the Cave, Uncle Simon, Probe 7, Over and Out. And the rest, I would say the bottom 3 would be those bottom 3, D to F. Last Night of a Jockey, 90 Years Without Slumbering, Black Leather Jackets. Now, of course, this isn't the whole season. I, of course, would cover part 2 in another episode. It might even be next week. I don't know right now what I'm going to do. I'm planning on doing a Harry Potter show. I want to do the Harry Potter movie. So I might break it up. I might do Harry Potter and then maybe come back to this, or I might even wait and go down the road and do the other half of this. I don't really know what the plans are right now. I had the show planned out, but life's been kind of crazy lately, so I kind of have to bob and weave through that. So I'll keep you guys posted on what the next show is and when the next show is, all that stuff. Right now, it looks like it's probably going to be Harry Potter next week. That's my plan as of this minute, but that could change at any minute. So I mean, it is what it is. But this was fun. I enjoy doing these television episodes for sure. The way that the aliens contact the greasers through the TV kind of predicts online video conferencing. Yeah, I guess before 2001, right? I guess so, right? The face timing or the eye timing. Maybe Rod Serling just want to have some fun. This is Earl Hamner, though. This one was Earl Hamner, which it makes sense because it's more goofy. I guess I'm playing devil's advocate here. I know there are people that will tell you this is a fucking fun one. I just don't. Like, there's a lot of bad ones I like. Like, I like the one with the car, and the car makes you tell the truth. And everyone tells me that's like one of the worst ones. I like the Mighty Casey, where it's like an android pitcher who is like striking out everybody. And then basically at the end, they give him a heart in order to qualify. And then he can't strike anyone out because he's not a competitor anymore. He doesn't have the heart to strike them out. Weird. I don't know. I just personally, I don't mind that one. Like, there's some bad ones I like. This is not one of them. Not a Harry Potter guy. I totally understand. Yeah, I think so. I think we're going to do it, man. I recently rewatched all of them, and I put a poll up asking if people would want me to do an episode, and it seemed pretty unanimously yes. I mean, there was a couple of people that voted no, but mostly people said yes. So I think it would be a fun kind of like horror detour episode, and all of them are fresh in my mind right now. So it'd be something interesting to go to. I'm definitely I can tell you guys this, a cursed object show. That's going to happen. I'm definitely going to do a part 2 to this at some point. So those are 2 shows definitely in the back burner. I sort of thinking about doing an Amityville show. That's going to be definitely somewhere in the near future. I definitely want to do that. And I don't know, I've been definitely trying to brainstorm with like different kind of show gimmicks, maybe get some guests on here. I was thinking of maybe doing like a trivia show, like having like a game show format where it'd have me as the host and then 4 contestants, and we do a game show. Grant, I don't know what fucking prize it would give away. That one's very much like a work in progress show, but maybe we'll do another director spotlight or a director retrospective. I got a ton of ideas and a ton of time to figure it all out. But next week might be Harry Potter. I'll give people the heads up. I don't know right now. But we've been 2 hours at this, man. This was a fun time. I have a great time always in the graveyard with you all. If you haven't seen these episodes, I highly recommend you go out and watch them. If you're a fan, if you're a big season 5 guy, let me know which ones are your favorites. I know Anthony is probably going to be doing a video review, I think, of number 12 Looks Just Like You very soon. I think that was winning the poll. He did a poll for which season 5 episode he wanted. And I was like, holy shit. I was like, I'm doing season 5 like next week. That's so crazy, the timing of it. That guy does some of the, I think, in my opinion, the best Twilight Zone content that YouTube has to offer is Fever Dreamland Theater. So go check his channel out if you haven't already. And he'll be reviewing, I think, number 12 Looks Just Like You coming up. He could confirm that. I really can't. So I think it is what it is. That's true. I was thinking I was going to do Cursed Objects 1408, which is the fucking haunted room. I was going to do Oculus, which is the haunted mirror. And I was thinking of doing Amityville 4 with the fucking the cursed lamp. And they have to do the exorcism on the lamp at the end. I thought that would be a fun one. So I don't know. I want to do a Cursed Object show. I think that'd be fun. But I could sit down and think of way other one. Way different ones. Great stream in the graveyard. What's the channel? This guy right here, Fever Dreamland Theater. Great people. He and I also, if you're season 4 fans, Anthony and I talked all things season 4, and I definitely want to get Anthony on here someday again to do like a half of another season. Maybe we'll do season 1, or even if I don't know what his schedule is, maybe he'd come on for season part 2 of season 5. I don't know. Definitely would love to have Anthony on the show again because I love talking, shooting the breeze with him. Fellow New Yorker, so always feeling my element with him. Absolutely, yeah. Let's see. Yes, that is the one is in the lead. Looks like number 12 will be next. Hell yeah. I selfishly am looking far forward to that because you do a better job at that reviewing that one than me. And I'm hoping it gets 5 number 12s out of 5. If you know, Anthony's ranking system is very fun like that. He takes an object or something from the episode and says that's out of 5. Like it's that out of 5, which is always, I thought, was kind of smart. So everyone, like I said, check out Anthony's channel. If you're catching the replay, let me know down below if you disagree or agree with any of these picks. You can shoot me a like if you'd like. And everyone, have a safe, happy, healthy weekend. We will catch you next time only on the Graveyard. Too sweet. Peace. Good night, everybody. Cheers from the Twilight Zone.